Good evening, everyone. Bonne soirée à tous. I'd like to welcome you to this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment for the City of Ottawa. It's an online hearing, as we have been for probably about almost 10 months at this time, so getting pretty used to it. The Committee of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial tribunal appointed by City Council to make decisions on certain types of applications under the Planning Act. My name is Anne Tremblay, and I will be chairing this hearing today. With me are also my fellow panel members, Mr. Colin White, Ms. Julia Markovich, Mr. Scott Hindle, and Ms. Kathleen Willis, who I'm hoping will join us very shortly. I'd also like to call your attention to the great committee staff that we have that support us at each one of these hearings. So thanks for Cheryl Williams, Emily Manette, Mandy Nguyen for supporting us tonight. It's your time's really greatly appreciated. And also to our Secretary Treasurer, Michelle Bellemare. Thank you to you as well, Michelle. All right, so please take note, if you haven't already, that this session is being videotaped, and it is being streamed on live on YouTube. If you would like to either have access to either this video or the agenda for the evening, you can simply go to the city's website and access either at your convenience. Before we begin, a couple of instructions that we typically like to provide to everyone in the audience. There's a number of issues that the Committee of Adjustment can't deal with because, in fact, development issues in the city are quite broad and our mandate is fairly limited. That said, we can't consider any aspects that are not related to the variances that are before us. So if there's an issue with the development that you have, for example, whether it's rear yard setback or height on a minor variance, the reality is if those standards are being met by the proposal and are not part of the application, then it's not something that we can address as part of our discussions. Also, we can't address noise, pollution, property maintenance, property values, prosecution for illegal construction. We deal with these applications as if nothing has in fact been constructed to date. We will not entertain any personal comments, whether about the owner or a neighbor or the agent or anyone involved in these proceedings. Also, finally, we will not consider any additional minor variances to the application or greater relief to one of the variances that are being required. So in all of those cases, we need to adjourn the application if we find that during the course of discussion that in fact that needs to happen. And then we recirculate the application with the corrections or the additions that are required. And then that matter comes back to us at a later date. So as part of the statutory public declaration notice requirements, each applicant is required to post a sign on the property and then file a statutory declaration with the committee saying that in fact they have met the requirements. And this declaration really needs to be on the file, or we can read one with you tonight into the record in order to hear the applications. And I don't believe I have any of the stat decks in from any of the applications for tonight. So we will be reading those into the record in every case.
Madam Chair,
yes?
Sorry to interrupt. We do have the stat deck for item 15-104 Britannia.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to take a note now. Okay, perfect. All right. With respect to quorum, so at times we all have had some issues with connectivity. If for whatever reason we lose quorum, we lose a member and we've still got 4, we're okay. If we lose 2 members, we still got 3, we're okay. But if we lose more than that, then we're in trouble and we've lost quorum, which means that we will pause. We will try to reestablish quorum. And if we can't do that, then we'll take whatever remaining items there is on the agenda and simply put them on to the agenda for the very next meeting and then hear those applications in due course. So listed on the agenda that you saw that was on the screen at the outset of the meeting is the list of applications for this evening. We have a lot of applications for this evening. For the sake of efficiency, the chair does have the discretion to choose to hear the applications in the different order than you see actually on the agenda. And we will be doing that this evening. So the way the process works is we have essentially two streams that we've adopted as part of these online hearings. One is sort of a fast track where the panel has had a chance to look at the information on file and essentially is quite comfortable with the information that they've been provided. In that case, we will not require a presentation from the applicant or the applicant's agent, but we will then ask questions if there are clarification matters surrounding the application in any way. So the panel members will get a chance to do that. The other stream is for applications for which we see there's added complexities. We have speakers on the docket, or any other reason that that may be multiple, like a fairly complex application in itself, for which a presentation would be required. In those cases, we'll ask the owner or the agent to provide us with a presentation at the outset. In both cases, the panel members do get a chance then to, as I said, ask questions for clarification. Once that's done, we can move to the public portion of the hearing. And at that point, I will turn to a speakers list, and I do have some speakers registered for tonight, in order to start that public hearing portion on the hearing of an application. Once everyone's had a chance to have their say, and I will make a call out to the audience in general, in case somebody does have something that they want to bring forward, and give them a chance as well to speak. And once that's done, the panel members can ask questions, so don't go away too quickly. We may, in fact, want to get further information from you. And then after that, we close the public hearing portion of the meeting, and then panel members get a chance to deliberate on the merits of the application. From there, the committee can make an oral decision. We can also, and then the oral decisions obviously can be either refusal or granting of the application. There is the odd occasion where the panel may find that there is sufficient new information that's being brought to its attention for which reserving, of the application is needed or really would be desirable. So in that case, we will close the hearing on that application. We will reserve, which means that we don't get to go away. We still have to be called back to a post-hearing meeting, the panel members I'm talking, and then further deliberate and render a decision. In all those cases, with the exception of any adjournments, there is a written decision that does get circulated within 10 days of the hearing. And that written decision provides the sort of the formal reasons for the panel's reasoning on a matter. All those decisions are subject to a 20-day appeal period, at which time the decision can be appealed to the local planning appeal tribunal for a fee. So with that, I'm going to go to the items of business. Any declarations of conflict of interest on either this panel or other panel that heard applications today? Yes, Mr. White.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The item on Prince of Wales Drive. Sorry, I don't have the number here. I think it's 16, is it?
Number 12.
Sorry, number 12. I'm going to declare interest on that. I have in the past, in my role as a city employee in the Planning and Development Department, was with the former city of Nepean, I believe, as well. If not both municipalities, did significant work on proposals that came that affected this property, and I have developed some earlier opinions and expressed earlier opinions, professional opinions on the planning merits of the development that's very similar to what is proposed here. So I don't feel that I'm qualified to participate in decision making on this. So I'm going to declare interest on it.
All right, thank you, Mr. White. Anyone else for any of the other panels? All right, so I too am joining Mr. White in declaring interest on item number 12. So I will also be recusing myself from discussions. I too have been involved in depth in the consideration of varying development proposals when I was in fact the director of airport planning and municipal affairs for the Ottawa International Airport. I too don't believe that I could bring the kind of objectivity to this application, given my having been involved professionally and as Mr. White has done, also expressed professional opinion on this matter. So I am going to recuse myself on that application as well. So that said, we've got then confirmation of minutes, which my understanding is we do not have any minutes to approve for or adopt this evening. So with that, we can go to our requests for adjournment. I have 3 requests for adjournment here. The first is in fact application number 1 for 322 Perrier Avenue, and I'm looking for the agent, Mr. Peter Hume.
Sorry to interrupt, Madam Chair, but I noticed we have a few attendees tonight that are calling in by telephone. And I just wanted to remind them that *9 will raise their virtual hand. If they wish to talk on an application, *9 will let us know they're interested, and *6 will mute or unmute them.
All right, thank you very much. That's very valuable information, I'm sure, for those of them calling in on the telephone, and I certainly didn't know that. So so thanks for providing that. So Mr. Hume, my understanding is that staff is requesting an adjournment on your application.
That's correct, Madam Chair. And we're in agreement with the deferral. We're going to resolve the outstanding concerns related to the city's comments. At this time, we don't believe that they're going to result in any changes to the request for minor variance, but we believe that we can address the concerns raised by the city. So an adjournment is appropriate in this case. I don't have a time though, that a time frame from the design team that's working on this that tells me I'll be ready in 2 weeks or a month. So I leave it in your hands to identify an appropriate time frame for an adjournment, or sign a die if that is appropriate in your opinion.
Mr. Hume, generally speaking, we do sine die applications unless we know for a fact that we can come back at a given time. And it's about really just ensuring good public notification of when the application will come back. So
I'm happy to adjourn sine die, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I can't go to a vote quite yet. I need to know if there's anyone in the audience who would like to speak either for or against a request for adjournment on this application. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. So with that, then committee, all those in favor of an adjournment, sine die. All right, so for the record, the decision is unanimous. So Mr. Hume, we look forward to seeing you back on this application at some, yes, Ms. Willis. Sorry, there's a question.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to say to Mr. Hume that what's before us right now is all about building height and neighborhood compatibility. And just looking through the report, I think that there's not a lot of graphic information that addresses the whole issue of an increased building height in the context of that community. So I think this panel would probably benefit by beefing up that part of your report or bringing additional information in that regard to the committee so we can make a better judgment on it.
Yeah, that's one of the issues that the city raised. They wanted to see more of the height as it related to the 45-degree angular plane. And so we're going back to do just that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hume.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Next application application or applications, I should say. We have a consent and a minor variance request for adjournment. That would be for 1551 Kingsdale Avenue. I'm looking for Mr. Guerra. Mr. Guerra, I see you there. So come on forward. Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
All right, so Mr. Guerra, we essentially have also heard from staff that there is a possible requirement for either an additional variance or a revised plan. And for those reasons, an adjournment is required this evening. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
All right. So I think in this case, can you tell me a little bit about where you are with respect to resolving these issues?
Well, actually, it's regarding like the driveway in the bungalow of 1551 Kingsdale Avenue. It was uncovered during the circulation period that once the property is severed, the driveway would no longer be in conformity with the infill bylaw provisions. I just, with respect to the width of the driveway at 1551 Kingsdale Avenue, the nature of the front yard and the overall depth of 7.42 meters is, I feel, there's a 47% soft landscaping, is a gracious amount of soft landscaping that has been present for the past 20 years. It would not affect the overall streetscape or the neighborhood. So it's been there for so long. And because of this new provision, I need to modify it to actually comply with the new bylaw.
That's correct, Mr. Guerra. You're going to have to deal with Mr. Hodgins. Then I would suggest to go back to some discussions with Mr. Hodgins in order to determine which route you would best like to take, whether it's going to be a revised plan or whether you would like to, the additional minor variances if you really hold dear the driveway the way it is. So if that's the case, then I think what we would prefer to do, Mr. Hodgins, can you come forward? I guess I'm trying to get a sense for how long it might take to resolve this. Is this one that we can push to the next meeting, or is it something we should sine die, in your opinion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I think it depends partially on how the applicant wants to proceed here, and we have had discussions. If they wish to keep that driveway in the exact same size, then a minor variance will be needed. So they would need to add that the recirculation, and committee staff would have to have time to process that accordingly. If they wanted to revise the site plan, then I would, which I don't understand is, or I'm not sure if that's what the main preference is here, then we could deal with it, as soon as possible. I think it's just important to note that our comments from the department will likely stay the same as the severed parcel where we had a comment on the driveway size concerns. So just to be aware of that, should a minor variance be applied for as well.
All right. Okay. So it sounds like there's quite a bit of discussion that still needs to happen on this application. So I am tempted to propose adjournment sine die. Does anyone on the panel have any comments in that regard? Okay. In that case, I don't have anybody to speak to this item. So is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak either for or against this adjournment? All right, I'm not seeing anyone come forward. So all those in favor to adjourn sine die? All right, for the record, the application is unanimously adjourned sine die. So good luck to you, Mr. Guerra. We'll see you back, I'm sure, at some point, and have all of those matters ironed out. Be great. So we'll see you then. Thank you.
Okay. Just a
Did
quick,
you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick question. Like how? So I guess I would reapply for an adjournment. How long would that take to recirculate the requirement?
It's at least a month. So you would be looking, yes, it's about a month by the time we get through the process and the requirements under the Planning Act. So yeah.
Okay, so I would contact the Committee of Adjustments to know how to go about doing that.
Absolutely. All right.
Okay, and just for the record, I did submit an oath to have this, that the sign was up for 2 weeks. I sent it to the Committee of Adjustment. I'm not sure if you guys received it, but I did do that.
Okay, not according to my paperwork, I don't believe. Okay, so So we'll make a note of that. We'll make sure that when you're back, we've got it. But if you need to add additional variances, I'm not sure how that works. You may have to actually do another sign posting and then do a declaration on that as well. So,
Okay, perfect.
all right.
Thank you.
So much. Good evening. All right. The last request for adjournment that I have is on 1967 Banff Avenue. And I'm looking for the agent on file, Mr. Ryan Bourgon. Yes, I see, Mr. Bourgon, I see that you're here. Come on forward. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair.
Right. So again, we have a request here for an adjournment on your application. I understand that our planning folks have some concerns. You're aware of that?
Yes.
Okay. So in this case, I think we're looking for because I think there's a number of matters, quite possibly, an adjournment sine die.
Yes, we're going to take a bit of time to amend the application a little bit and take the city's comments into consideration and edit the plans a little bit and make sure that we have all the information that's required.
Thank you. Any questions from the panel at all on this?
Madam
Yes,
Chair?
Mr. White. Mr.
Yeah, I
White.
just have a question of the process here. Has there not been a pre-consultation with planning staff on this application? I know this is one that seems to have several issues that have come forward as a result of the planning review of the application. I'm wondering if there was a pre-consultation and if there was, why some of these issues may not have been identified at that time.
I did do a pre-consultation with I spoke to a development information officer and someone from the planning department as well. And, you know, the information that they gave me and what I applied with was basically what I was told to do. And then, you know, once I heard back from the planner from the city, there was some additional concerns from them. I don't know if it was a miscommunication on my part for some of the things that were missing. I know some things changed on January 1st, potentially, that when I spoke to them in last year, some different requirements came up January 1st that we weren't aware of. So there's a couple things that were going on there.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wonder if staff might have a comment on the pre-consultation process on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. Apologies. So unfortunately, I wasn't the planner that actually did the pre-consultation, but I reviewed the notes and it appears as if the question or the concern was just the rear yard setback and rear yard area. And I am not sure if the final plans were submitted at that time for staff to provide fulsome comments.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on this request for adjournment?
Madam Chair, I wonder, maybe we can discuss this at our committee of the whole meeting subsequently.
I think that's an excellent idea, Mr. Secretary Treasurer, Mr. Billmeyer. Could you please make a note of that?
Is there any pre-consultation on applications of this nature?
Yes, we'll add that, Madam Chair.
Right, thank you. Okay, don't have any speakers on this one, but I'm going to make a call out. Anyone in the audience want to speak either for or against this application for adjournment? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody come forward, so all those in favor of adjournment, sine die. Okay, for the record, the decision is unanimous. We are adjourning the application sine die. So, Mr. Bourgon, good luck to you, and hope to see you back sometime soon.
Perfect. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, we're going to go to some of our what we call our fast track files at this point. First one I'd like to call forward is 256 Billings Avenue. It's application number 2. Agent on file, Mr. Safely. Are you here? Come on forward. Good evening. You're going to need to unmute.
Perfect. Good evening, Madam Chair and committee members. So yes, I'm here to present a minor variance request in height for 256 Billings, which I plan to construct a proposed single detached.
Mr. St.
Building?
Just, I'm just going to stop you for a minute.
Yeah.
Because we don't need a presentation. We've looked at the
Perfect.
application. We know what it is. We're going to go straight to questions from the panel at this point in time. Anyone have any questions for
Madam
Mr.
Chair?
Sinkley?
Madam Chair, can we?
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. She doesn't even have to say it. She just needs to, okay. So Mr. Sakeley, we do not have a stat deck for you for the sign posting. So do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted on the property to which the application applies, that it was posted for the prescribed number of days before the hearing, and that it was clearly visible and legible during that entire time? Do you either swear that or affirm that to be true?
Yes, I swear and I affirm that it to be true.
All right, thank you. And thank you again, Ms. Manette, for reminding me. Okay, so back to questions of Mr. Sakeley on this application, noting that there's no concerns from city staff on this. Okay, all right, I'm not seeing any questions. I also don't have anyone on my presenters list, so I'm going to make a call out. Anyone in the audience would like, if you would like to speak either for or against this application, now is your chance. Just raise your hand. If you're on the phone, I think it was *9. Is that right?
That's right, *9 for his hand.
And I'm not seeing anyone at this point. Okay, so members, time for a vote. All those in favor of the application? All right, so for the record, the application is granted unanimously. So with that, Mr. Sakeley, the only other item I see on this was a comment that came in from Hydro Ottawa regarding servicing requirements and your need to install at least an electric service meter 1 meter from the property line. You're aware of that?
Yes, I am aware, and it will be included in our building, in our drawings.
Okay, perfect. Great. So I think that's it. There's nothing else we really need to talk about.
Thank
so
you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.
All right, the next application for this evening is item number 4, 2221 Lawn Avenue, 428 Ancaster Avenue. I'm looking for the agent on file, Mr. Brum. I see you're here, so I'll give you a minute. Mr. Brum, can you turn your video on? Mr. Brum, do you hear me? Okay, I see your hand is raised. Come forward if you can. Mr. Brum, are you able to maybe reconnect a little bit later? What I think we'd like to do then is go to the next application, and I'll come back to you. Maybe give you a chance to try and reconnect. Mr. Brum, are you there? Okay, I'm seeing a logo for UCAM. All right. I think what we'll do then, Mr. Brum, is give you a chance to maybe try and reconnect. And we will move on to the next application just to keep things moving. All right, so we're going to go to item number 9, which is for 1916 Belcourt Boulevard and 1673 Kindersley Avenue. Looking for the agent on file, which is Ms. Mr. Brum. Okay, Mr. Brum, we're going to step you down. I'm going to deal with application number 9 at this point. So if I could see Ms. Victoria Kamchevska, please. So Mr. Brum, I'm going to ask you to mute your thank you. All right. Again, so welcome.
Thank you.
The committee doesn't require a presentation at this point, so I'm just going to open it up to questions from the committee members.
Okay.
Any questions? Oh, just whoa. Sorry, need to read this to you as well. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice?
Sorry, the notice was posted by the owner, so can they, I believe they should be here too.
Right. I'm looking for whom then, because I don't have a name.
For Razna Aurora.
Do you know if they're here?
They should be here, yes. Pierre,
All right.
Pierre.
That name again and call them for, like, so I need them to come forward in order to hear from them. Hello, sorry, your last name again, just for me, so that I can refer to you.
Pierre Bergeron.
So, what, can you spell the last name, please?
Bergeron.
Bergeron. Ah, Bergeron.
Bergeron.
Ah, ok, bon, mais ça, c'est facile. OK. Est-ce que vous voulez parler en français ou en anglais?
No, English is fine.
English is fine, okay. So, Monsieur Bergeron, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted on the property to which the application applies, that it was posted for the prescribed number of days before the hearing, and that it was clearly visible and legible for the entirety of that time? Do you either swear or affirm that to be true?
I swear that is true.
Okay, thank you. All right, so Ms. Kamchevska, I take it you're gonna take the lead on the questions at this point, or no?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so members of the panel, any questions for the agent? And now that we have the owners, also to the owners, if you'd like. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions from the panel at all on this application at this point. So for this application, I just want to see whether or not, okay, I don't have any speakers on record. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak either for or against this application? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody come forward. So on that basis then, and before I call the vote, Ms. Kamchevska, you're aware that there's a number of conditions for this?
Yes, we are aware there are a number of conditions regarding the servicing and grading of the lot. So at this point, the lot on the Kindersley Avenue is to be put on for sale as a vacant lot. So we're wondering which conditions need to be met by the current owners and which conditions will be, it seems like grading plan and servicing plan will be reviewed during the building permit application. So
So Ms. Kamchevska, essentially, there can be no creation of a new lot unless all the conditions are met and cleared. Okay, so there is no new owner until we get to that point. All right, so, but I think I know where this discussion is going to go. So go ahead, Mr. White.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a question of staff concerning the lifting of that 0.3 meter, 30 centimeter reserve. I'm wondering if and perhaps for the benefit of the future purchaser or the applicants, if there are any charges associated that will be associated with the lifting of that reserve. And I'm thinking of costs to connect to municipal services in particular, if there will be a costs associated with that. I just think that if there are those, that the applicant may want to be aware of those ahead of time.
Thank you, Mr. Member White. Through you, Madam Chair, at this time, I'm not aware of any additional fees that would be applied aside from the lifting of the 30 centimeter reserve application fee. Once the 30 centimeter reserve application is put forward, it's circulated internally, and that's when those additional requirements, if any, will be identified.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just think for the benefit of the applicants, they may want to be aware that there may be charges associated with that lifting of the reserve, the connection cost in particular.
I guess my question is that a cost then that comes at the time that the new owners would apply for a building permit?
Well,
is that typically, oh, sorry, still got to have Mr. White if you know the answer.
My understanding, that would be dependent on what the purchase and sale agreement might be. If that kind of matter is included in the purchase and sale agreement as a condition, I think that's up to the transaction, people involved in the transaction.
Okay, all right, thanks. So Ms. Ramirez, just to confirm.
I just wanted to bring it up so that someone is aware that there may be a cost associated with the lifting of the reserve.
Okay, I guess I'm still confused then, though, more than anything, maybe just me. But Ms. Ramirez, just correct me if I'm wrong. So there's the lifting, there's the application to lift the 1 foot reserve, but the cost associated with actually getting the services is actually triggered through the building permit process. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Chair, I know our local improvements fees have been applied before. They are added when people come in for their water permit or when they come in for their other building permits. I'm not sure what the process would be for this.
All right, but thank you, Mr. White. I do appreciate the raising that as a concern in this case. So duly noted as part of lifting that reserve, it could be that it would trigger at the same time the costs associated with that. So, and if that's the case, then and it's part of the clearing of the conditions for the creation of the lot, then it falls to the existing owner. Ms. Kamichevska, would you like to?
Yes, I would like to clarify the condition for servicing and grading. It says in the planning report at the end that they will be reviewed during the building permit process. However, we are not, like the current owner is not planning to apply for the building permit process at the time. So how can we lift all the conditions and sell it without applying for the building permit?
Yeah, that was actually one of my questions. So Ms. Ramirez, is that something that we can actually just defer to, or maybe explain it to me? Is that a grading and drainage plan for the lot that is retained, or is it actually for both?
Through you, Madam Chair, the grading and drainage plan is to make sure that the properties drain independently of each other. And we do require a preliminary grading and drainage plan as part of the severance. A more detailed grading and drainage plan is required when someone goes in for a building permit.
Thank you. That makes total sense to me.
Okay.
So,
any other questions? Yes, I see Mr. Bergeron. Madame Bergeron.
So I just want to confirm again what Lucy just said as well. So we have to submit a plan that the drainage plan thing, but not.
Just an engineer needs to say that they're both draining separately on 2 streets.
Okay.
Which is the case.
We're on the same page?
Yeah.
I think so. I think we're good. Thank you.
And also, just to confirm again, that the actual servicing of the lot is not to be done because we just want to sever it as a vacant lot, as we confirmed. What?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yep, that's okay. I think we understand. I think we understand that. So that's fine.
Because we the side we are retaining, we're fixing that place up, the bungalow up. And this one, we're just selling as a vacant lot. And we want to specify that so that we don't get stuck with then servicing and everything. So that the plan is, quickly we're selling it. Someone wants to build something, then they'll take on the permit, whatever is to be done.
I think Mr. White's point was that it may become a negotiation point as part of the purchase and sale transaction. So it's got nothing to do with us. You can take that up with whoever wants to perhaps buy the property.
Because in the conditions, I think it mentioned that we have to simply provide the evidence of the servicing plan as such, but not to get it serviced. The condition of the sale is...
No, it's not a servicing plan. It's demonstrating that there can be independent services. So what we don't want is services to the existing house that's to be retained, that there'd be anything like that the severance would cross over it in any way. So we need to know that that is an independent service that will be retained and will form part of the retained parcel. That's what we need to see from you on that.
Okay.
I think I got that right.
Another three.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
These are pretty standard. These are pretty standard conditions. So so no worries. And if you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to either Ms. Ramirez or the committee staff. They'll be able to help you.
Thanks so much.
Okay, with that, I'm not sure I recall where I got on all this. Oh yes, I think I was just asking you, Ms. Kamichevska, we were talking about the conditions. We've already done the public hearing portion, so I think we're now at a vote. So committee members, all those in support of the application? All right, for the record, the application is granted unanimously and subject to the conditions that we've talked about and a servicing requirement from Hydro. And I take it you've also seen that comment as well? Yes. All right, thank you so much. In that case, I don't think there's anything left for us to discuss. I don't think, I'm just mindful here that I may be missing things at time, but no, I think this is good. All right. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Good night.
Okay. I'm going to go back number 4. So I'm going to go back to Mr. Brown. So Ms. Manette, do you know if we've lost Mr. Brum or is he?
No, Mr. Brum seems to be online.
Great, thank you. Mr. Brum, I think I even see your hand up at this point.
Yes.
Are you able to join? We can hear you, that's great. Is it possible for you to turn on your video?
I just turned it on. Can you hear me now, Madam Chair?
We can hear you. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Okay. When I raised my hand the last time, the screen froze, so I went and got another computer.
Okay. All right. Well, we don't see you, but we do see an image. So I think that's fine. I think we can move on at this point. We don't need a presentation from you. I do have to read something though. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted on the property to which the application applies, that it was posted for the prescribed number of days prior to the hearing, and that the sign was clearly legible and visible for the entirety of that time? Do you either swear that or affirm that to be true?
I do swear and affirm.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. So no presentation required. Committee members, does anybody have any questions at this point, Mr. Brown? No? All right. I don't have anybody on the speakers list for this application. We're going to make a call out to the audience. Is there anyone who would like to speak either for or against this application? Now's your chance. You can just raise your hand if you would like to. Ms. Young, I see your hand is up. Did you want to speak?
Sorry, no, I don't see how I've raised my hand. Sorry about that.
That's okay, that's fine. I just didn't want to miss anything. So, all right, in that case, Mr. Brum, I see no speakers. There's been no questions. There are a number of conditions that run with the staff report. You've had a chance to see those.
Yes.
All right.
They have or are being met at this time.
All right, that's perfect. We also note that there's two residents who have actually written in messages in support to this application, so that's great. And with that, then I guess I need all those in favor of the application. All right, so for the record, the application is granted unanimously and subject to the conditions that are outlined in the staff report. And with that, then, Mr. Brim, I don't think we need to discuss anything further. Have you any questions?
No, thank you very much. And I apologize for the technical issues.
No worries, it happens for sure. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Excellent. I am going to go to the next item then, which is item number 11. Item number 11, I'm looking for, it is 1342 Kingston Avenue. And I'm looking for the agent, Ms. Blakely. Right, is Ms. Blakely with us?
Oh, Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Bays.
I believe that item 11 is 1342 Kingston Avenue, and I'm the agent for that file.
Okay, isn't that interesting? Okay, so I had sort of two names down for this, and so my apologies. Yes, good. I can see that it is you too. So, okay. So with that, oh, actually, my apologies. I was looking at the wrong application, so that is totally my fault. So before we get going, Mr. Bays, I do have to read something to you. So do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted on this property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days, and that it was clearly visible and legible for the entirety of that time? Do you either swear or affirm that to be true?
I affirm, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Again, we're not looking for a presentation on this. We do have a slight housekeeping matter, however, that we need to take care of. My understanding is under variant C, the minimum interior side yard setback should read 1.2 and not 1.4 meters. Is that correct?
That's correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, and there is no other housekeeping item, I believe. Okay, I don't see anything else. All right, questions from the members of the committee. Does anybody have anything? Mr. White?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question of clarification. It's my understanding that we're dealing with an existing building that already has an existing secondary dwelling unit within it. And the reason we have the application before us is simply because of the desire to upgrade the existing secondary dwelling unit to current requirements for building code and fire codes. Is that correct?
That's correct. Through Madam Chair, the issue that we have here today is that this secondary dwelling unit, it's existed. We have evidence it's probably existed since 1957 when a building permit was issued for what was called a rumpus room in the basement. However, there's no building permit that was formally issued for a secondary dwelling unit in the basement. So what the current owners, they recently purchased the property. They've decided that they wanted to update the basement to make sure that it meets building code and meets fire code. Through some of their due diligence, they identified, or rather city staff identified, that the lot size, or the lot area and the lot width, are undersized for a duplex. And as a result, it was deemed that they would have to go through the minor variance process in order to permit the duplex and, by extension, permit a secondary dwelling unit in the duplex's basement.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions from the panel members? No? All right. So I'm not seeing anybody on my speakers list for this item. I don't believe, no, I do not. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak either for or against this application? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone, so let's go to a vote. All those in favor? All right, for the record, the application is granted unanimously. So I don't believe there's really anything else for us to talk about. Hydro Ottawa had some comments. Other than that, there's really nothing further to discuss. I don't think. If you any questions, Mr. Vase?
I don't believe so, Madam Chair. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, and good luck with the project.
Thank you.
All right, we're moving along on our fast track items here. So the next one is item 13 for 84 and 90, and I'm going to say Dwayne Street. I'm not actually sure if that's the correct pronunciation. Looking for Mr. Scott Murray on this. Mr. Murray, I see you there. Can you come forward? Good evening. You're on mute, Mr. Murray. Mr. Murray, you're on mute.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
All right.
All right, so Mr. Murray, I'm going to need to read something to you as well. You solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted on the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days prior to the hearing, that the sign was clearly visible and legible for the entirety of that time. Do you either swear or affirm that those statements to be true?
I have forwarded an affidavit to that effect from the owner, from the applicant, and it should be on file. I can advise that it was I who swore his affidavit, and it did contain the information that you've just mentioned to me.
All right, I need to just clarify that with our committee coordinator, Ms. Manette. Are you in receipt of that stat deck?
No, I'm not, Madam Chair. It might have been filed at the previous hearing when this application was adjourned.
All right, so we do for the record then have it already. Is that correct?
I would have to check the file. If the applicant is not prepared to swear again right now, I could check the records and get back to you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Murray, maybe we should just do it verbally as well, and then it's sort of a belt and suspenders, and we'll have it. So
what I can swear to is that I swore the affidavit from Mr. Lewandowski that contains the wording that you have just given a moment ago. So,
right, so not to put words in your mouth, but for the record and for the abundance of clarity, you are swearing that in fact all these statements are correct.
Yes, that's.
Thank you. I just want to make sure we have to be clear for the record, Mr. Murray. We can't leave it to interpretation. So we've got to be really clear on these things. Okay, excellent. Given that, we are not requiring any presentation, but I do see that we have a minor housekeeping change required to the notice. You're aware, Mr. Murray?
No, I wasn't.
Okay. So we are being told, and I'm going to call Mr. Hodgins forward if I may have some questions for you, Mr. Hodgins, because my notice indicates that the area dimension for B0003 86 Duane Street is actually not 316.3, but 183 point, and now it's either 1.2 or 1.3. So I actually need to know which one it is. Can either of you gentlemen tell me which is the right number?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I believe it's 183.12 square meters, not the 316.3 identified. But if you would allow me to just double check on the plans provided to confirm, that would be appreciated.
Mr. Hodgins, the reason I ask you is because it would appear that some members of the committee got a version that said 183.12, that's my version, and other members of the committee got a version that said 183.13. So we were just looking for confirmation, honestly, on which one is the correct one. And Mr. Murray, that this doesn't ring a bell for you?
No, it doesn't. Not at all. It's the first I've heard of it. I'm not sure what that number pertains to, quite frankly.
The area. It's the area dimension for the property at 86 Duane Street.
Well, I can do the calculation while I'm here, if you like.
Well, I think I'm going to wait for Mr. Hodgins then, because I think Mr. Hodgins had proposed the correction in the first place. So I think we'll just we'll give him a minute to come back with that. Meanwhile, we can move forward with questions from the members of the committee. If anybody has anything they would like to get some further clarification on. All right, not seeing that.
Through you, Madam Chair, I can confirm based on the survey and the dimensions, it would be 183.12 square meters. I apologize for the confusion, and I'm not sure where that came from.
That's fine. That's okay. No worries. As long as we've got the right number, that's already we're on the right road. So okay. So I don't have. Let's see. I just want to make sure here. Don't have anybody on my docket to speak to this application, but I'm going to make a call out there now. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to come forward and speak to this application either for or against? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody. So with that then, Mr. Murray, you have had a chance, there's a number of conditions to the consent. If approved, you're aware of it?
Yes, I'm aware of the conditions that are being asked for.
Okay, and you're aware of the Hydro Ottawa's requirements as well?
Yes, I am, and I can advise that there are no common elements that are served by Hydro.
Okay. So I think we're going to need some, I'm guessing we need a clearance letter on that one way or the other, however, just to ensure that Hydro Ottawa has no further concerns with regards to development on the property or the severance of the property, I think in this case. So, okay.
I do have one question though, and that relates to the last condition that the planning department has forwarded in regard to the fire separation matter. There's reference in the letter to the committee that verification from a designer holding qualifications through the Ministry of Housing must be submitted, and I would be very much appreciative if someone could tell me where I would locate such a designer in order to make compliance with that condition.
All right, and Mr. Hodgins, I could hazard a guess, but if you have the answer, that would be helpful.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I believe a civil engineer and architect would be suitable there. I'm not exactly sure what qualification being referred to here, but I believe it's just a verification from a civil engineer or an architect.
Or somebody similarly qualified, I suppose.
This reminds me of, and maybe Mr. White, yeah, I was going to ask Mr. White or Ms. Willis to pipe in here, because I know the ministries, I don't know if it was the Ministry of Housing, used to keep lists of people that were qualified to provide professional opinions on certain matters. Is this one of them? I don't know, Mr. White?
Madam Chair, I noticed the condition is to the satisfaction of the chief building official. I'd suggest the best person to contact would be somebody in our building services branch.
Great suggestion. Okay. Mr. Murray, any other questions?
No, thank you very much.
All right. Okay. So on the vote, all those in favor of the application? All right, for the record, the decision to grant the application is unanimous. I think that's all of the matters that we need to speak about. So thank you, Mr. Murray.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. Okay, the last fast track application that I have for this evening is number 14 at 1483 York Mills Drive. I'm looking for Mr. Stone. All right, Mr. Stone.
Yes, Madam
Good
Chair.
evening. All right, so Mr. Stone, we don't need a presentation from you as well this evening. We have, let's see, oh, and before, hang on. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing, that the sign was clearly visible and legible for the entirety of that time? You either swear or affirm that to be true?
I affirm that, yes.
I beg your pardon?
I affirm that, yes.
Oh, you affirm that. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I didn't hear you on that. Okay, so no presentation. I think we can go directly to questions from the committee on this. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Stone? Mr. White?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think my question is more directed to Ms. Ramirez. I believe she's the planner on this application. Just some clarification on you presented in your report, I think on page 3, diagram concerning the rear yard area calculation, and I'm a little bit concerned. I think I now understand where you're coming from in this, but I'm concerned with the structure of the zoning bylaw that appears to leave out that area from the back, from the closest wall of the proposed sunroom addition to the main dwelling, the main part of the dwelling, as being not included in the calculation of the rear yard area, which I'm assuming means the open and unobstructed amenity area of the rear yard. It would seem to me that, and I know the bylaw is going to be under review, it would seem to me appropriate that that issue be addressed, because I mean, functionally, clearly that's, and I agree with your report that clearly that's a functional part of the unobstructed amenity space of the rear yard area, and I feel should be included in that calculation of the rear yard area. Just a comment. I appreciate your comment on that, because I think it speaks to the merits of this application very significantly.
Through you, Madam Chair, thank you, Member White, for your comments. I do believe it speaks to the merits of this application. This is definitely something I can bring back to the policy team who are going to be reviewing the bylaw, that this should be something that should be considered.
All right, thank you. Okay, any other questions for Mr. Stone? All right, I don't have anyone on my list to speak to this matter, so I'm going to make a call now. Is there anyone out in the audience who may have an interest in this application, either for or against, who would like to address the matter with the panel? I am not seeing anybody come forward. So with that, then we are not looking at any conditions, of course, because it's a minor variance. So I don't believe we need to talk about anything else related directly to the application. So I think we can go directly to a vote at this point then. So all those in favor of the application? All right, okay, so for the record, the application is granted unanimously. So thank you, Mr. Stone.
Thank you.
And good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, we're now going to go to our applications for which we will want presentations. And the first one then, going back to the bottom, or I should say the top of the list, number 3, we're looking for 1359 Maxim. And I'm looking for the owner, Mr. Langan. All right, I see that somebody's raised their hand. I'm assuming that it's the owners. Can you come forward?
Yes, sir.
Yes, hello. All right, so for the record, can you give us your name? Because I see a number of different names.
Sylvestre Longa.
Okay, all right, so thank you, welcome.
Thank you.
Before we proceed with your application, I do need to read into the record the declaration. So, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted on the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days prior to the hearing, and that the sign was visible and legible for the entirety of that time? Do you either swear or affirm that to be true?
I affirm that to be true.
All right, thank you. With that, I'm going to give you the floor for a presentation on your application, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair here, and thank you to the committee members. I'm making an application here to the committee to permit a coach house build of a height of 6.8 meter because that coach house will be located above a garage. So number one will be the height that I'm requesting the committee to grant. And my number 2 will be the footprint that I would like the committee here to grant it to be 62 instead of 59.6 according to the bylaw. Now I have to stress out that the design that I presented my application with was done with in line with the official plan and also the zoning bylaw. And I'm assuming that the member of committees that you have had a chance to read my application. Is that right, Madam Chair? So I don't have to
yes,
go.
We have.
Okay, so I don't have to go in the nitty gritty. What I'm showing here is actually my neighborhood. So a few pictures that you've seen here. The one on my right, the one on my right showing a warehouse, like a garage warehouse, is actually adjacent to where this garage and coach house above will be sitting. And the picture on the left is actually showing the street, the parallel street to mine, which is Orel. Orel Street is actually behind Maxim Street. And what you're seeing on the first plan here is actually a house showing a garage with an apartment above. So this is not located in the backyard, but this is very similar to what I'm trying to build here. So this is actually to show the committee that my neighborhood has a mixture of houses. And if you see that picture, like if you see from, there's a very, very small side of that picture that you can see showing like the new development at the Gloucester Shopping Center, which is actually a high-rise, two high-rises building that were built quite recently. So, last year we had the train inaugurated starting at the Blair Station. So it's about 800 meters from here. So all that to say that this neighborhood, it's a very vibrant neighborhood with a mixture of so which would normally help with respecting the character of my neighborhood here. So I did make sure that on the design, when I started, I did my homework by consulting with the city staff, and I did change the design a couple of times to ensure that should I say abutting properties. For example, the one behind the 1634 Orel Street, which will be the one eastern of my property. So we did make sure that we remove all the openings like the windows, because the first design, the first plans was showing all those windows. So we made sure that we corrected the design through the consultation with the city staff to preserve. Yes. So this is actually the elevation show to preserve the privacy of the property at the back, and of course I don't want to go into the details, into so much detail. I know that I only have 5 minutes. So what I would like to stress out here mostly is that we made sure that everything was really in line with the official plan. Like in terms of, let's say, the height, the house that I'm sitting in here now, it's actually 8.4 meter in the height. And what we are proposing will be 6.8. And the house that I'm sitting in has a 1.26 square meter. And normally the projected new structure will be 49% of the house that I'm sitting in here. So 9%, a little bit over that. However, my backyard, it's very huge, should I say, at least huge enough to be able to accommodate this new structure and still leave a lot of room for my children to play and for backyard living, because I have 4 children. What is the reason that we are doing this here? Because we have a life of multi-generation here in the house. So we have a granddaddy for my children who currently live in the house, and we would like to give space to that person. And we've checked all the rules to make sure that we weren't going beyond the permitted number of rooms. So my current house here has a 4 bedrooms and a loft above that we use as a bedroom. And with the new structure, this would only really be 7 rooms. So we'll be still less than, let's say, the 8 permitted bedroom, for example. I understand and I appreciate the fact that my neighbors some of my neighbors sent comments, but I want to reassure my neighbors that I did everything that we should and we could to ensure that the privacy would be respected. This is not setting any precedent. So my new, the proposed project here is not setting any precedent, because the picture that I showed you earlier with the massive garage and warehouse at the back, this is only going to be, you know, like I'm saying, you know, something existing. So it's going to be in line with what is already existing. So I'm not really creating or fabricating any sort of, you know, how can I say it? Something outside the norm for this this area of the city. And as you can see here, this is the right neighborhood. This is the address at 1352 Orel Street. You can see that in front of like the vehicle here is facing what used to be a garage, but that was transformed at some point to become, let's say, an apartment on this house here. So there's a lot of that kind of change in my neighborhood. And I'm very conscious that, well, you know, like one of my neighbors raised it, that they might lose sunlight a bit. But given that that house is actually located on the east from my house, the sun comes from east, as you know, and every morning, you know, the other day, like you can see my pictures, you can see that for the morning till almost the evening, that property would not be losing any sort of sunlight. And then lastly, but not least, I'm very conscious that they raised the issue of openness, but currently, because the my next door neighbor are two duplexes plus a secondary dwelling like in a building, so they're already high enough, and my house is already high enough. So from the property in Orel Street, that's what they see. So really putting my structure where it will be sitting would not really take any openness to, you know, to the side from my neighbor located at 1364 Maxim Orel Street, which was one of the concerns that was raised here. And in closing, I have to refer you back to the City of Ottawa report. They are in agreement with us that the two variances that we are applying for minor in nature, and that the new structure will be would live in harmony with the area. So I will stop it here. Not sure if there's any sort of questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Longuin. I do have, before we get to the questions, and I know the committee does have some questions for you, there's a couple of housekeeping changes to the notice that I just want to read into the record. And so I'll read them. You can confirm to me that they're correct, and then we can move on to the questions. All right. Yes. So my understanding is that the legal description needs a slight modification. So here we're going to change what's written in the legal description and add part or PT period of lot 37 registered plan number 685, part 1 of 4R plan 25 to 64. Is that correct? All right, okay, perfect. I believe that that's the only housekeeping item I needed to make to that notice. So with that, members of the committee, any questions? Yes, Ms. Willis.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just asking the applicant whether, particularly in view of the concerns raised by the neighbors to the rear, whether you had given any consideration to moving this garage coach home combination closer to your house, thereby increasing the space and therefore opening up more the light that might otherwise be denied the neighbor by moving it closer to your own house and shortening your driveway?
Yes, I have given that a consideration, but I mean, there are two issues here with that. If you see the current design, there is no opening at the back. So if we were to move the projected house from its current location closer to my house, that would look very funny, like in the middle of the yard, to have a wall, just like a wall, because there's no openings right there. And also, I'm attracting your attention once again on the picture that I've shown to you, like on the right side, left side, looking at the backyard, the garage, which is already there. So the idea is actually that this garage already located right here, that the new structure be in line with that structure already existing, because that make more sense. And we determine, and you can see the note from the city staff, that even though there is a concern that some lighting might be lost, again, that the house behind is located east, and it gets the sunshine all day. And where the projected structure will be located is actually facing their own garage. So it's actually facing their own garage and a tread lot. So there isn't really anything in that area. And for the very small time that they lose the lights, like they might lose the sunlight for the day. And the only, I can tell you for sure, we spend time these days with my wife really looking at the back to ensure that there wouldn't really be any sort of loss of light, loss of light. So those are the two considerations that would make it more accurate, moving the structure like closer to my house. It wouldn't really solve.
Is just a second question to that. Is there any technical reason why you can't pull it forward?
There isn't any there's no technical questions as to why we couldn't put it, but it's actually more like a design. Like I say, you see that garage which is already existing, so it would be so funny to have to move it very close to my house and have that garage sitting at the back and having to go at the back with no opening. It is to be noted that one of the concern, like one of the neighbors' concern also raised that they wanted to build a wall, a fence to protect their privacy with my left side two duplexes, because also on my left side, because I'm actually in the middle of duplexes on both sides, duplexes and apartment, like in the basement. So my neighbor, who is actually raising that same concerns, had already, even when I went to meet with them, and that was also something that I was very surprised, because I did, I did take the advice from the city staff, and I went and met with them early on and showed them the plan. And at the time, they said to me they didn't have any issue with what I was showing them, and they told me that they were planning to build a fence so that they can keep their privacy from the parking lot on my left side, two duplexes. So if they're going to build a fence, which could be a wall, like in their own property, to try to protect their privacy. So this will just be normal. It will be in line with that. It will be almost in line with that fence that they're projecting to build anyway. So.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. White, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this question is best answered by staff. If I could, if this structure in the rear were to be only a detached garage, what would it, first of all, the location, would that conform in terms of the location setbacks to the property lines, etc.? Would that conform to the zoning bylaw requirements for simply a detached garage? And also, if that's the case, what would be the maximum height permitted for a detached garage in that location?
Through you, Madam Chair, the detached garages are required to be 0.6 meters from in the rear yard, 0.6 meters from the lot lines. Regarding the height, I'll need to double check. I believe it's 3.6 meters, but just give me a minute to verify that that is the permitted height.
Madam Chair, it's my understanding there's no variances required here with respect to the yard, the setbacks from property line. At least we don't have an application that includes those provisions.
No, and I think we just want confirmation from Ms. Ramirez that in fact that's not a requirement.
Through you, Madam Chair, the maximum permitted height is 3.6 with the height of the exterior walls not to be more than 3.2 meters. That is for a detached garage.
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you. Ms. Ramirez, would the lot coverage, what would the lot coverage require? If this were to be simply a detached garage, would the lot coverage situation conform?
Through you, Madam Chair, the maximum permitted size, cumulative size of accessory structures in the rear yard are 55 square meters or 50% of the yard. So they would meet the yard requirement, but not the cumulative size requirement.
Sorry, the
cumulative size requirement, so 55 square meters is the cumulative size of accessory structures in the rear yard or accessory structures.
And this one is
62
floor,
I believe. Let me verify.
I think that's.
it says it has a footprint of 50.69.
So the size of this building is 62, or the coach house is 62 square meters.
Okay, so we would be over the coverage permitted. Thank you.
Okay. And that's the calculation that we see in variance B, right? So we were essentially saying that in this case, the maximum is actually 50.69. Is that correct? And so the variance is between the 50.69 and 62 square meters. And that's for a coach house. But if it's a garage, then it's 55. Is that what we're, okay. All right. So for a coach house, the requirement's actually lesser or more restrictive. Okay, all right. Okay, good to know. Any other questions, Mr. Hindle?
Yeah, I think in this case, I think I take your point from the applicant that there is precedent there for an accessory structure of some description in the rear yard. I think that the issue that I have here is the height. So can you maybe tell us why you need that second story, or really why you need that garage, where you currently don't have a garage, so you're really substantially increasing the parking?
Well, the reason sorry that you didn't catch when I said it, so we just wanted to increase the living area. Because currently we have a granddaddy living with us here in the house. So we just want to make sure that we can give that person their own space. And because we are already building those garage anyway, so we are planning to do a double bay garage. We felt, given that, the bylaw is permitting the infill with the coach house, and the coach house can be built over a garage, but because the height was limited to 3.6, and we had to go to the committee of adjustment to ask for. So this is something which is given, that you can build a coach house. But in the situation where a coach house, like with official plan, in a situation where a coach house is actually located above a garage, well, then, you know, we can go to the committee to get the approval. I can always maybe look with my designer to, you know, because like one of the advice that we got from the city staff at the time was maybe to reduce the height to 6.1, which is what is actually permitted in the rural area. In the case of a coach house over garage, that's possible. I can still do that. But I was taking it from the fact that my own house here is 8.4, and they say that in no situation that coach house can be higher than the main house. And 6.8 seems to me that it was quite reasonable, because like you get in the garage, which is actually 10 feet, and then you have, let's say, 8.6 in terms of habitable area. So, and then when you put the roof that wide, it came to 6.8, but we can always reduce the garage to 9 feet and maybe reduce the upstairs to absolutely 7.9 or 8 to make it 6.8 in total.
Okay, yeah, and I think that starts to address some of it. I think my concern, and I think you heard it echoed a bit from Mr. White and Ms. Willis, either talking about keeping the height and dragging it forward so it doesn't have the same amount of impact on your rear neighbor. And I think we heard through Mr. White's questions that the area of the garage is at least somewhat in line with what would be permitted just as a garage as of right. I think the question here, and I think for me at least, I would have no issue, I think, with the coach house with that same footprint, just as a single story. I think the issue becomes here because we pushed it all the way to the back of the lot, and we're looking to add a second story. You're putting quite a large structure right at the back of a lot adjacent to a number of other properties where there's not necessarily that expectation of a very large two-story wall right adjacent to different properties. So I think to me, that's where I'm a little bit struggling. I think I'm comfortable with the second variance for the for square footage. If you were to do a coach house just as a single floor with this, honestly, even the same layout that's potentially been proposed. But I think where I'm struggling right now is just on the height, especially because it is so directly adjacent to the other yards.
So the only thing with that, you mentioned it earlier, you know, like the only thing with that is like, if you reduce it to 6.1, like I say, you know, it would be the same height with the garage, the picture that you saw earlier, that you mentioned earlier. So that would be the same. So it's already, like I say, you know, like there's a garage, like the garage that I sent you the picture. So I'm not creating any precedent with what I'm proposing here, because like if you do it, you will be, I mean, 6.8 might have been a slightly above that garage, but if it was to be reduced, let's say around 6.1 to be in line with what's permitted like in the rural area, it will be exactly the same like the garage, which is already there, the warehouse garage, which is already there, sitting there as we speak, and which has the same, how do you say, the setback is the same.
So are you saying, sorry, that the garage on the neighbor to your left,
yes,
that we saw is 6.9 meters? I find that hard to believe.
I mean, it would be minimum 6.1. I'm saying that if we were to reduce to, for example, 6.1, I mean, maybe, I don't know if the coordinator can put back that picture, but it would be the same sort of height. You know, it's not your typical garage, so I'm not sure if my mouse, so when you look at this one here, so a normal typical garage would be somewhere here. So this is already what, if reduced a bit, the new structure will would look like. And like I was explaining, like I raised a little bit with the other question that came from Madame, I forget her name, sorry, Madame Willis. If you were to move, if we were to move the other structure here, for example, so that would, so what I'm saying here, so it wouldn't really be in line with that garage already existing here, and that would, you know, I mean, I personally I wouldn't have any issue moving it here because we have enough space, and we have enough, you know, enough space like on the backyard, but it's just like in the design, it would look so funny to have two structure like that, you know, one at the back and one because my neighbor is only really 1 meter from me. You see what I mean? But going back to the height, this height here, it's about minimum 611, and it's already sitting there in front of you. And this picture here, like, you know, like I know like this is not a backyard, but this is exactly approximately, you know, I'm talking about the picture on the left. This is exactly approximately what it would look like on the backyard.
Thank you for that, Mr. Longang. Is there any other questions then? Mr. Handel, are you satisfied? Okay, you're good. All right, Ms. Markovich, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So I just want to confirm for the applicant, I'm looking at the plan that you've submitted. The location of your proposed garage and coach house, if approved, is immediately beside your neighbor's garage. Is that correct?
Yes.
So it would not be beside the principal residence of your neighbor, but the neighbor's garage?
Yes.
Okay. And on the other side of the property, what would it sort of be? What's on the other side of the property there? It looks like it's a bit cut off on my copy of the plan. I just want to make sure. Yeah, it's under the seal here. What is that? I guess the bottom right corner. I'm just trying to determine what's on either side of where your proposed garage would be.
You mean this side, this side?
Yeah, the neighboring property right there. Yeah.
Yeah. So these are parking for the two duplexes on my left side. So
okay,
it's a parking lot.
Okay, so parking basically on either side of where you're proposing to build both a garage and a coach house.
Yes.
Okay, and that photo you submitted, thank you, of the garage, is that the one that's immediately beside you? I just wanted to confirm that first image you showed. Not that one, this one, yes. Is that the one that's beside you, or is that just a different part of the neighborhood?
No, that's the one that's beside me.
That's
so
the one that will be beside you. Okay.
Mine will be sitting just right here, close to.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else before I go to the public portion on this application? Okay. I do have one speaker that is registered, so I'm going to ask Mr. Taifa. Mr. Taifa, I think I see you here already, so if you can come forward. Mr. Taifa, your hand's up, and I see your name. If there's anyone else in the audience that would also like to speak to this application, if you could come forward as well. So I see we have a phone number. All right, one last chance. So Mr. Taifa, are you able to come forward? Okay, I'm going to go to the person who is on the phone. I see a 613 number, ends with 673. Can I have your name, please? I'm looking for Mr. Ty5 or the person who is on the phone who had their hand raised.
Madam Chair, if the person on the phone could press *6 on their phone, that will unmute them.
All right, thank you. Okay.
Madam Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Can we have your name, please, and your
My name
municipal
is-
address?
My name, Madam Chairman, is Dennis Taifer.
Okay. Okay, and we do have your address then already because you are on my speakers list. So, okay. Well, go ahead, Mr. Taifa.
I have met Mr. Langang, and he has proposed to build a garage behind our property, which I have absolutely no objections to. However, my objection is one concerning height, privacy, and proximity. There were no mention of a coach house at the time. However, even at this point, I do not object to a coach house, but I do object to having a garage and a coach house stacked up one on top of each other. I have heard some of the proposals from another committee member that this garage / coach house could be moved closer to Maxime Street, which would certainly be an alternative solution.
All right. Okay, thank you. You've had a chance to speak with Mr. Lagas. Is that what you indicated to us?
He has knocked on our door, and he has told us that he was going to be building a garage, but at that time there was no mention of a coach house.
Okay, but you did get the notice of the meeting tonight that clearly indicated what was being applied for?
Now, Mr. Longang is also referring to the garage to the north of him. That garage is quite an eyesore for most of the neighbors, and it's actually referred to as a Kingston pen. But we cannot change the existing structure, but I think that building a coach house and a garage one on top of each other will just exacerbate the problem.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Taifa from the members? Excuse me. I'm not seeing any questions then for Mr. Taifa. Okay, well, thank you for joining us.
I have nothing else to add at this point.
All right, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak to this application? Just raise your hand. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone else at this particular point in time. All right, so committee members.
Madam Chair, sorry, I believe Member White has his hand up, and I thought at one point Member Hindle did as well.
Oh, sorry, did not see that. I was looking towards the bottom of the screen rather than the top. So go ahead, Mr. White.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to have a comment from staff again concerning the specifics of the official plan wording. I noticed in the staff report on page 3, where it talks about the height minor variance that we're dealing with here, there's reference to official plan wording that basically appears to say that an application to allow a height of up to 2 stories for a minor variance may be considered when the footprint of the coach house contains a garage to park vehicles. So in other words, am I correct in understanding official plan is supportive of minor variance similar to what we're dealing with here, where we have a coach house that's being constructed on the second story as a second story to a garage? It's very specific, correct?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair, yes. A 2-story coach house can be considered where it does have a garage within its footprint. And there are a host of items that the official plan lists that should be considered. The height of the primary home being one of them, privacy of adjoining neighbors, the impact to abutting properties, significant tree and plantings, as well as the impact to the streetscape character.
Thank you. Just to follow up, and my understanding is that the height of this structure is less than the height of the associated detached dwelling.
That is correct.
Point
Through Madam Chair. Yeah, it's 8.4 is the height of the existing dwelling, and the coach house is 6.8, is proposed to be 6.8.
Thank you.
Any other questions or clarifications? Willis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have absolutely no ig with a detached garage, and I have no issue with a coach home. I think it's a great form of intensification, but I too, in this instance, find that it's just too big and too high adjacent within 1 meter of the adjacent property lines. And yes, you can see that the garage that exists adjacent to it at, if it is 6.1 meters, is actually lower than what's being proposed. And the fact that it's there doesn't mean it's pretty. It looks intrusive, and I can completely understand the concerns of Mr. Taillefer about not necessarily shadowing, I would think, but also just blocking light and making it an even longer wall than exists there today, particularly if it's completely in line. So I think you've heard from Mr. Taillefer that he would look favorably upon having that push forward. And I think, given that you've already said that you could look at the idea of reducing the height, that a combination of those two, I think, would go a long way to making me see this as a favorable combined application with the coach home and the garage, which again I think is a good form of land use if it can be done sensitively and without agitating the neighbors. So I would think that maybe coming forward with something that's a little different, that reduces the height, reduces the building separation from the neighbors, would help me, convince me that it's a good application.
All right, thank you, Ms. Willis. Any further questions on this for clarification? Okay, so I guess the question then becomes, are we dealing with the application as applied for? Or are we suggesting at this point that we're looking for revised plans? So Mr. Nanguin, I'm going to give you a chance to tell us, give us your thoughts with regards to what you might be able to do to address some of the comments that you've heard tonight.
Well, there was another picture, so I'm not sure if the coordinator can put the other picture that I had showing actually Mr. Taillefer house. Here's Mr. Taillefer house. I'm not sure if my are you seeing my?
Yes, we do see it.
Okay, so here's typally the garage, the existing garage that you're seeing. And here's where, you know, I'm proposing to locate the proposed house. So when you look at it really, and here, for example, we had a picture. I'm not sure if the picture you can show the time, but this picture was taken around 2:30 in the afternoon, and the sun was somewhere here, like you can see. So what I'm saying here, and then from what Mr. White kind of confirmed with the official plan, that you know, the official plan clearly allow building, let's say, a coach house when it's built over a garage with car being parked in there. When I take all those in consideration, given that you know, where the house will be sitting here. Frankly, maybe it might look too big as a big too much of a big issue at this particular point of time. But looking at these are the two triplexes here, and these are the other triplexes here, and I'm located here. My own house is located here, and that garage will be located here. So it's really facing an empty lot, as you can see on these pictures here. So it wouldn't really hurt anyone per se. I'm not saying that, well, I'm not taking in consideration the concern that were raised, but if at the end of the day, if you at the end of the day, you know, maybe I would definitely consider maybe lowering maybe the height to the 6.1 that is actually permitted like in the rural area. But it is what I could do, and if this committee it's feeling that okay, maybe they want to maybe walk maybe walk a little bit aside from what the official plan is actually suggesting, then I mean what would be my choice, Madam Chair. So maybe I can, I mean, first of all, like I say, I can lower the height to the 6.1, which is 6.8 now.
All right. Mr. Longa, I guess I'd like to go back to just addressing the panel for a minute. So we have a report here that essentially has support from planning staff and references to policies directly from the OP that's supportive. I'm a little bit leery about beginning to make changes in design on the basis of standards that we're picking from other zones, other areas of the city. If we do that, that's kind of a slippery slope to get into. So I'm almost of the mind that we should deal with this application on its merits, the way it is today. So, if there's no objection to that, dealing with the application as is, then I'd like to call a vote.
And one last
thing.
Now,
listen, I'm talking, Mr. Lange, I'm talking to the members of the panel right now. Ms. Willis, please.
I'd just like to find out from the applicant whether he would consider consulting with his neighbor. We could adjourn it and come back with a proposal that is more acceptable to the neighbor and is also acceptable to the applicant, which would be acceptable. I'm just one voter here. To me, if it was lower and pushed farther from the property line, I'm just interested in knowing if he's interested in that possibility. And if not, then we'll deal with it tonight, obviously.
All right. I don't mind the idea for an adjournment, because I think the other thing that Mr. Langan would have to do is actually talk to his designer and find out just what he can do by reducing that height. Does he still manage to meet his objectives? So that's another consideration. So I'm okay with the idea of allowing for an adjournment to look at just whether or not there's any wiggle room here. I do have to say, though, that I myself don't have any concerns with the application the way it is. So I would be, probably prepared to support this application as is, but I will go with the will of the panel. If you wish to adjourn this and allow for more discussion, that's always a good idea. Thoughts? Mr. White, did you want to say something?
Madam Chair, I think there's sufficient room in the official plan wording, which is very, very specific, maybe contrary to some of the wording of the zoning bylaw. But I mean, if the applicant were prepared to come back in a couple of weeks or whatever with a reduction in the height of the building, and as Ms. Willis has suggested, the possibility of relocating it farther from the property line, notwithstanding that there still might be variances required, I'd be prepared to entertain that. I would not suggest that we would need to see something that requires further circulation and effort on the part of the applicant. If let's put it this way, if the variances, there are still variances required, but they can be significantly reduced, I think we could be in a position to deal with an amended application at that time.
Amended application, Mr. White, it needs to be recirculated. The difference is,
sorry, Madam.
If there is an amended application for additional minor variances, needs to be recirculated.
No, I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about additional minor variances. I'm talking about reducing the variances that are being requested in the application as it stands today. In other words, the numbers shrink.
Yeah, okay, and that's quite possible. And I think that then is a more fulsome discussion with Ms. Ramirez on this, between her and Mr. Longan then, and seeing whether or not there's I'd be mindful, right? We're not looking at trying to create a situation either where there would be additional minor variances. Maybe there wouldn't be. Ms. Ramirez, did you want to weigh in on some of this?
I don't believe that it would require a recirculation if the relief sought was less. I did offer some advice to the owners to start with about possibly locating the coach house further away from that rear lot line so that it would be below a 45-degree angle, so a 1-to-1 slope with the height. I will note that the way that it is written, the provisions is that the area between 1 meter and 4 meter are a no build zone. You either have to be close enough to the lot line where no windows are permitted from the building code, or far enough away, so 4 meters away would permit you to have windows on that rear facade.
Oh, I see. Okay, so it opens up other opportunities at the same time. Okay, all right. So Mr. Longan, how would you feel about an adjournment to the next meeting in order to provide some time to perhaps talk with Mr. Taifa or other neighbors and with your designer to see if there's any way to move maybe a little bit more towards some of the ideas and the suggestions that you heard this evening?
Well, frankly, Madam Chair, so I mean, there's everything here to really make a decision on this application here today, because the application was presented based on the official plan. It was presented based on all the requirements of the zoning bylaw. I understand that this committee here is very mindful and very considering for what the neighbor might say, but as a citizen, we need to also be educated. So it's not because, like the situation with that of my neighbor, that house used to be occupied by the father-in-law, who is no longer living there. So they came from Toronto. Maybe they didn't really live in the neighborhood to see the neighborhood evolution. They say themselves, so they're planning to also build a fence to try to cut the parking from they owned. So I guess maybe I don't know what it would really change from because I'll be coming back to you. It's almost like maybe I made an application here for like one of my variants was like a setback. So setback was never really part of my application. And what Mr. Ramirez explained, we did do consultation all the time. I sent pictures, and the reason why it's located there was because she said between 1 and 4 meters is a no building zone, and I removed all the windows. So everything was already done to fit the official, let's say the official plan and the zoning bylaw. So everything is in there. So it's a matter of looking. On dit regarder à foi. Je m'excuse, moi je suis francophone, je peux peut-être parler en français. C'est comme de regarder froidement l'application aussi et de se demander est-ce que ça rencontre toutes les exigences au niveau du plan officiel de la ville et puis du zonage. Si c'est ça, pourquoi est-ce qu'on doit repousser et me faire attendre alors que la demande rencontre toutes les conditions?
Monsieur Longan, vous avez absolument le droit de procéder avec votre application telle que soumise. Ça, c'est exactement la décision que j'aimerais avoir de vous. Si vous voulez procéder, on peut prendre une décision ce soir. Qu'est-ce que les autres membres proposaient? Ce serait que vous prenez peut-être le temps pour voir s'il y aurait des révisions à faire, mais je comprends ce que vous dites. Il y a quand même les politiques puis les règlements qu'on sait, d'après le rapport du personnel qui est en soutien pour votre application. I'll just translate for some of the members. So what Mr. Longuin is essentially saying is that his application, based on, we know this from the staff report, there's a lot of merit to his application. He's I think, and he can correct me if I'm putting words in his mouth, but I think that the application, the way that it's submitted, has sufficient merit in his mind to move forward with an approval this evening if the committee seems open to do that. Alors, M. Languin, est-ce que vous voulez qu'on procède à un vote sur votre application telle que?
Oui, je pense que ça sera ça parce qu'il n'y aura rien qui sera corrigé, madame. Et j'espère que, je dis madame la présidente, et j'espère que vous comprenez où est-ce que je viens avec ça parce que je ne peux pas le changer plus que c'est déjà là. Je dis tout est là, je comprends. Et puis, il faut vraiment expliquer aux autres membres. Je comprends qu'on veut satisfaire quand même les préoccupations soulevées par mes voisins, mais les voisins peuvent soulever des préoccupations dans l'ignorance du plan officiel ou de la loi. Bon, ce n'est pas parce qu'ils soulèvent ça qu'à la fin, ça démérite l'application. Il a été présenté vraiment selon, comme je vous dis, j'ai fait tous mes devoirs. La dame qui est ici, Madame Ramirez, elle peut vous dire que je l'ai presque dérangée souvent beaucoup parce qu'à chaque fois que j'ai fait quelque chose, j'ai consulté. Et d'ailleurs, vous pouvez voir parce que si le rapport de la ville que j'ai ici, que vous avez reçu, ça dit très clairement dans les deux points, dans les deux conclusions. Je veux dire, moi, j'inviterai encore les membres avant de prendre la décision d'aller lire exactement les conclusions. C'est très clair. Ça dit, par exemple, pour ce qui est de height, ça dit à la fin ici, staff are of the opinion that the coach house will coexist with existing development without causing undue adverse impact on surrounding properties. Alors, comment est-ce que clair ça peut être ça? Puis si vous regardez le premier sur la surface, c'est la même conclusion. Donc, ça dit, staff is of the opinion that the variance to increase the maximum footprints of the coach house is appropriate, minor in nature, and meet the intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw. How can that be clearer? So, de le repousser, pour moi, ça n'a aucune valeur de repousser ça parce que je vous ai tout présenté.
OK. Merci beaucoup, M. Languin. Je vois que vous avez fait vos devoirs et que vous avez pris le temps vraiment là, de bien comprendre le processus et politique, les règlements et le tout. Alors, merci pour avoir pris le temps puis de nous l'expliquer en même temps. So I think what Mr. Languin is saying is that as much as he appreciates some of the concerns from the neighbors that we have heard and that we've received material. At the end of the day, there's still a lot of support for this application just based on what I think you heard him read in English, the parts that are supportive from the planning report. So I think for him, we're going to proceed with a vote. Ms. Ramirez, I see that your hand is up. Did you want to say something, or is that just?
No, sorry, didn't mean to.
It's been like the popping hand syndrome tonight, and I think a lot of people haven't done it on purpose, and it's just happened. All right, so members, I am going to go to a vote at this particular point in time. Then I'd like to see all hands in favor of the application, please. And I'm in favor as well. All right, so for the vote, for the record, there's four members that are in support of the application, with Ms. Willis confirm that you were dissenting.
Yes, I dissent. I think the combination of the increased size and height and proximity to the adjacent property when there was no technical reason that it couldn't be relocated and reduced in size indicates that its impact is too great on the neighbor to be considered minor.
All right, thank you for having said that, because it's very helpful when it comes to writing the decisions and explaining reasons for the dissent, so that was very helpful. Alors, Monsieur Langen, félicitations, vous avez eu votre approbation pour votre application.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci d'avoir pris le temps de nous joindre ce soir.
Merci beaucoup.
OK, bonne chance.
Merci.
Okay. All right. We're going to go to application number 7. 575 Old Prospect Road. I am looking for Monsieur Réal Leben.
Good evening, Madam Chair, panel
Good
members.
evening. I'm going to read something to you before we go any further. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted on the property to which the application applies, that it was posted for the prescribed number of days before the hearing, and that the sign was clearly visible and legible for the entirety of that time? Do you either swear that or affirm that to be true?
Yes, I do.
So Mr. Leben, do you affirm or do you swear?
I affirm. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So 2 choices that I kind of have that I can give you. But anyway, okay, so that's great. We're on that. So Mr. Leben, we're going to ask you for a presentation on this application.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief and we'll elaborate in any other discussions following this presentation. Essentially, we are here before the committee to request a minor variance for the proposed terrace that is located in the corner side yard. If I could point to this landscape plan at the very bottom where the text is highlighted in red, there's a small terrace which is treated as a bit of a stair landing, stepping down from the pool terrace and coming down into the corner side yard, which is at the very bottom of the page there. And that terrace was noted to be a little bit closer to the property line than originally anticipated. And so we're 1.2 meters away from that property line to the south, where the bylaw requires us to be 50% of the corner side yard at 4.5 meters is the minimum required corner side yard. So that would mean 2.25 meters as a projection, and we are 3.3. So the relief is for the permission of that terrace to remain as it's constructed today. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Leben. Are there questions for the applicant?
Yes, there are.
No, Ms. DeKay, I'm sorry, I'm just addressing the panel members at this particular point in time. I'm not even into the public hearing portion yet, so I will get to you. I will get to you, don't worry. Okay, so Ms. Willis, please, and then Mr. Hindle.
Yes, just a question for Mr. LaBelle. So I'm just curious as to how this happened. Was it an error in construction of the terrace, or was it an error on the plan? How did it come about that this happened after the fact?
Well, to be clear, the error was during the construction period because of the size of the terrace and the height of the terrace. It formed part of the landscape plan that came afterwards, and we actually, as part of the construction, didn't anticipate this landing to be treated as a terrace in the original design. So it was less than a foot off the ground, and so one would typically just put landscape pavers in its place, but in this condition, we detailed it with a proper slab on grade, and at that point with the pavers it was noted that it should actually be interpreted as a terrace and not a stair landing. So we then met with the heritage planners on site to discuss their opinion on the matter, and we explained to them the situation, and they felt that we should actually pursue, if we wanted to retain it as it was, to pursue a minor variance application, and that following the minor variance application, following an approval of the minor variance application, we would then seek a delegated authority to have the heritage planner review it or approve it, because it is a new item on the landscape plan. And so it would have to go through the proper process with the heritage department as well, which I spoke with both Ann Fitzpatrick, who's on maternity leave at the moment, and Ashley Cutbar, who's currently acting in her position. And they have no issues with, no concerns with the terrace as it is constructed today.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Hindle.
No, I think my question's been answered. Thank you.
All right, okay, good, that was efficient. Anyone else from the committee? Any questions? Right, I have a quick question then for Mr. Walker. I just want to make sure that the, Mr. Walker, are you with us? Ah, there you are. I just want to make sure that the process, like, do we have the process right here? So you're asking for a minor variance, and I'm just one, or the, not you, the applicant, but I'm wondering, is it better to have a review, a heritage review first before it gets here? Like, it would seem to me that it would benefit the committee to actually have the heritage sort of position on this before we make a decision.
Yep.
Have I got that wrong?
Yep, thank you, Madam Chair. So in some instances, a heritage approval would be required prior to approval from the Committee of Adjustment. But I have confirmed with the heritage planner working on the file that there are no concerns with the proposal from a heritage perspective, and that they recommended that the applicant proceed with approval from the Committee of Adjustment before they receive approval from their heritage permit.
So what then was, Mr. Navan, feel free to jump in here. So what is this delegated approval? Just explain that one to me.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
The delegated approval that Mr. Laben was talking about before, what is that? Just explain that to me really quickly.
Yeah, exactly. So essentially, if it's delegated, if the approval is delegated to staff, the application would not be required to go back to council.
I see. All right. So in this case, it would just be a delegated approval authority from the Heritage Group, who already have suggested that they have no concerns. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Okay. Just wanted to clarify that. Anybody else? Questions at all? Mr. Laban? All right. I'm going to go to the public. All right. So I'm going to go to the public portion now of this on this application. I have two registered speakers, and I am not sure. So Ms. Paquette, were you here in support of the agent? Sorry, you're on mute, just to confirm to me.
Yes, I am.
All right. Okay. Thank you. So I just wasn't sure what side that was on. So in that case, then the only registered speaker that I have is Ms. Ducad, who's representing the Rockcliffe Park Residents Association. So Madame Ducad, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. For those who do not know me, I'm not representing the Rockcliffe Park Residents Association, but the Rockcliffe Park Residents Association Heritage Committee, of which I am the chair. And I'm also here to speak on behalf of its members, who are Michelle Collum-Heyman, John Cook, Marianne Fever, Danielle Goldberg, B. Hampson, and the Honorable Michael Kellen, retired Justice of the Federal Court of Canada. For those who do not know me, I'm a registered landscape architect and a fellow of the Canadian Society of Landscape Architects. I run my own firm in Ottawa, and I'm the designer of record of the Vimy Foundation Centennial Park on Vimy Ridge in France, located within 750 meters of the Vimy Memorial. I received awards from the City of Ottawa in urban design and other awards from the Canadian Society of Landscape Architects. And I also sit on the local advisory board of the University of Carleton Israeli School of Architecture and Urbanism. So first, I'd like to mention to you that this property has a history of presenting drawings that are inaccurate, and the landscape plan that you have in front of you today has a number of inaccuracies. The second thing, and I'll point them out to you in a moment, the second thing that I'm quite concerned about is that Anne Fitzpatrick, the heritage planner, on record for this, with whom we corresponded in 2019 when we first raised this matter to the attention of the heritage staff while this terrace was under construction, said that she would look into it, and we did not receive a satisfactory response at the end of the day. And I have not had a chance to discuss this matter with Ashley Katorba. So normally, in circumstances where there is a matter, we pride ourselves with having an excellent working relationship with City of Ottawa heritage planners, and we're no longer in the day of the Chateau Laurier. That chapter, with all of that, we've turned the page on that. And we have a really good working relationship, and Ashley Katorba has just become the liaison for Rockcliffe Park. And therefore, I would very much have liked to have had the opportunity to discuss this with her, but I want for the record to show that we did not have that opportunity. So in terms of the unreliability of the drawings that are shown to you, first of all, the hedge, which on the drawing that you have in front of you, is shown as straddling the property line. The hedge does not straddle the property line. The hedge, which was supposed to be located on the original approved plans, well within the corner side yard, is not within the corner side yard. It is entirely located on city lands. And that was a result of the terrace and the pool and all of the hardscape of the corner side yard protruding and pushing out into the street. Now, I want to remind everyone of the provision in section 41.2, article 2 of the Ontario Heritage Act. And it's relevant to what the zoning bylaw says. The Ontario Heritage Act, that section says, in the event of a conflict between a heritage conservation plan and a municipal bylaw that affects the designated district, the plan prevails to the extent of the conflict, but in all other respects, the bylaw remains in full force. We consider the amount of hardscape excessive in the corner side yard. The zoning bylaw should remain in full force. The bylaw reinforces the Rockcliffe Park Heritage Conservation District Plan approved by the City of Ottawa, by Council. The implemented work has already created a conflict with the Heritage Conservation Plan, which requires that, and this is legislated, the existing character of the lot pre-construction, its associated landscape, and the streetscape are preserved. The amount of hardscape introduced in the corner side yard is a clear departure from what was there and a change in character. And you only need to look at this and at the side yard here to know that that's no longer green. It was green prior to construction. So that's pretty clear.
That's something, Ms. Nikaya, that you have on your screen, your computer screen, that you can share with us?
Yes, I can. I'm going to try not to turn you off, literally, by just moving this over here and opening this. Oh, now I have to share my screen. Hang on for a minute. Let me do that.
Excuse me, Madam
Okay.
Chair, only the coordinators are able to share their screen.
Oh,
and we were not
okay.
provided with any presentation material.
All right, thank you, thank you.
Okay,
So,
okay. Well,
so
in
much
that
for-
case, okay, well, in that case, you received this drawing in your package. The only difference is that I didn't mark it up in red. So if you look at what I provided you with, and you look at this drawing, this is the side yard from this point to this point. That is the corner side yard. And everything you see in red is hardscape. All of that was green before. The only part that I've put in hash marks is where the swimming pool is. I'm not sure if you consider that hardscape or not, so I didn't want to show something incorrectly. So you can see that the amount of green space that is left in the corner side yard is minute. As far as the driveway is concerned in the rear yard, that is not accurate either. There is a paved area in the far corner for, I don't know, garbage or refuge or some other structure on a concrete pad that's been added there. And that, just so you know that the neighbors do care about this, that was sent to me while I was waiting to speak this evening by a neighbor very close by who is following this file very closely and who said, yeah, the drawings were inaccurate. So the variance is not, when you look at variances, and I'm new to the variance business, I have to tell you, I'm not a planner, I'm a landscape architect, but I was reading what variances are for. And in this case, the variance is not required for the appropriate development of the property. In fact, it's required for the inappropriate development of the property. Furthermore, the intent of the bylaw is not maintained. Now, in this particular property, what we have is a situation where when we consider the amount of hardscape, which is excessive in the corner side yard, the amount of hardscape that has been introduced is a clear departure from what was there and a change in character. For this reason, some mitigation is required. So we ask that there be some remedial action and not a blessing by agreeing to reducing the required setback. The setback, and now if you look at the section that you received, if you look at the numbers, and the numbers were just quoted to you, the 4.5 meter side yard, the 3.3 meter projection, the permitted 2.3 meter projection, what do those numbers actually represent? The setback requested represents a 70% increase to what is permitted from 2.3 meters to 3.3 meters, 70%. And a reduction to a side yard from 4.5 meters to what will be left of 1.2 meters. This is simply excessive, the drop of water that makes the glass overflow. There is no compelling reason to accommodate this application, except that it creates a huge inconvenience because they just plowed ahead, assuming they would get a rubber stamp at the end of this. And every legal requirement of a zoning bylaw and a heritage plan in a heritage district to oppose it. The Honorable Michael Kellen, a retired justice of the Federal Court of Canada, in his email of September 12, 2019, which you have forward to the city heritage planner, Anne Fitzpatrick, indicates his understanding as a former chair of the Committee of Adjustment for Rockcliffe Park of 12 years prior to amalgamation, that a deck and a terrace needs to respect setbacks. This matter was raised at a time when something could have been done other than to seek to regularize a terrace that does not conform with the zoning bylaw. A meter closer to the property line is quite a lot, as you see on the section provided to you. And as a result of all of this, the hedge, which was supposed to be inside the property line, was pushed outside of the property line. So we ask you to reject this application for a variance. It is one of many matters regarding this property that are anomalies. Some were the result of errors by the city. For example, giving a building permit to drawings for a building height that was over 1 meter higher than what had been permitted by council, recommended by the Built Heritage Subcommittee, and endorsed by the community during consultation. So we have a history, and I understand from you, Madam Chair, that you're not there to correct the history. But the problem is with this history is that we have a very large building, we have a lot of hardscape, we have a number of errors, and every significant incremental error compounds a situation that some of the neighbors are very agitated about and which contradicts our Heritage Conservation District Plan. And we see no reason at all to endorse this, quite the opposite.
All right, thank you, Ms. DeKine. I'm going to take questions from, and if I can ask the coordinator to bring back the grid so that I can see who's, is it possible to bring back the tiles.
You should be able to change your view in the top right gallery view.
Isn't that interesting? All right. Yeah, it's back. Thank you. I don't know how it switched. I swear I didn't touch it. Okay, so questions for Ms. Decaire on some of the issues that were raised. Anyone from the panel? All right, I have just a couple of comments, Ms. Decaire, and I can see that clearly there's a real history with this property. But you're right, there's the jurisdiction of this committee is fairly narrow. And as I always say in my opening remarks, we are faced with the decision that's before us in the application. So the decision for the committee is this minor going from 2.25 to 3.3? That becomes a question. We can't deal with the hedge issue. We can't deal with the hard surfacing because we only have one standard under the zoning bylaw that for which relief is being sought. So, and I hear what you said at the beginning, where in fact it sounds like there were warning flags that were raised and articulated, and for whatever reason, we're still left with a situation where we have a minor variance that's been applied for. So Ms. Paquette, I just want to ask you a couple of questions as well. So you're the landscape architect on file for this terrace?
I'm the landscape designer. Yes, I am. Yes.
Okay. But were you involved in the development of the landscape plans for this particular property?
Yes, I am, and I do take exception to the comment that the plan was inaccurate. The actual cedar hedge along Old Prospect, the trunks are inside the property line. They are not outside. We measured it against the existing lot line. So that is not the case. The hedge is not on city property in that location. In regards to the pad that she talks about on the back side, that particular, what she's indicated on her plan is incorrect. That is shown on the original plan where the generator and the shed is on the far side yard of the plan. So both the instances that she indicated that we were misleading on the plan are not the case.
All right, so Ms. Pickett, in terms of the process that you undertook to develop the landscape plans, you're aware that there was a heritage conservation plan for that particular area. Can you tell me a little bit about the steps you took to address and ensure that that was incorporated in your plan?
Oh yes, I had numerous meetings with Heritage. My plan went to them for approval, did receive approval. Anytime an issue came up from the neighbors or that we made changes on site, we were informed them and brought them to site. Anne was on site numerous times. She was very aware of the process. She did express some areas that she wanted me to change, like taking out a pathway when we really didn't need it, just to reduce the hardscaping, and we did do that at the back. The owner went through considerable expense to put in a very, very mature cedar hedge, as mature as we could put. I don't know if you can see the pictures that were submitted with the application, but it's very green from the street. You would not know the street view, perhaps. That's the inside view, the outside view. The street view, you have no recognition that anything is happening behind there. We've kept it very green, very much in character with Rock Cliff. We've used the traditional cedar hedge, white cedars that they requested. And as I said, it's quite high. Great effort was made to make the massing of this building become quite green. And so I was in constant contact with Heritage, and nothing has been brought to them after the fact. We've always talked to them as things have progressed.
All right, okay, thank you for that. All right, based on, all right, Ms. DeCarr, I'm going to give you a minute, a minute to respond. Oh, you're on mute, Ms. DeCarr. Ms. DeCarr? Ms. DeCarr, you are on mute.
I was on site on the day that the hedge was planted, and I didn't see the landscape architect of record on site on the day that it was planted. Now, whether the hedge is right on the property line or
I just want to make a comment that, I mean, it's not helpful, right, to make comments and to go back and forth. So let's just
well,
put that
the comment
aside.
that is the most, Madam Chair, the
merits.
comment that is the most helpful is whether the variance is required for the appropriate development of the property, because that, at the end of the day, is the job of the panel. That's your job. That's what I read as the mandate of the variance.
That's exact. I think we're in
Yeah,
agreement.
and the
with you.
variance in this case is not required for the appropriate development of the property, because this development on this side of the property is inappropriate. It does not meet the requirements of the Heritage Conservation District Plan, and it does not meet the zoning bylaw. What is appropriate about that? That is not appropriate. And the intent of the bylaw is not maintained. No one has answered. No one has told me what the intent of the bylaw is in this location. What is the intent of the bylaw?
Okay. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to answer that question because part of the whole minor variance process in particular is to deal with variances to the zoning bylaw. So if you're always meeting the zoning bylaw requirements, you don't need a minor variance. So there are other tests under the Planning Act for making decisions. All right, committee, are we ready then to go to a decision at this point? All right, I'm looking for all hands in favor. Mr. Hendo? We lost Mr. Hendo. Mr. Hendo? No. Okay. Okay, you're in support. Okay, I think I just.
Yes.
Yes, technology, isn't it fun? It'll be nice to get back in person to a certain extent, I think, and do this, or we can have projectors and the rest of it so we can see material. All right, so it sounds like we've got an approval of the application. It is unanimous at this point for the record. So even though, it's disappointing actually to hear that, there's been a lot of back and forth on this, and yet here we are with a lot of differences in opinion about how this fits into the overall plans. So, I think at the end of the day, it's because the committee is finding that it is minor, like in the grander scheme of things, and the impact. What I didn't see is evidence as to what the actual impact is, adverse impact on neighbors. I didn't see that. I heard it wasn't in keeping with the heritage plan, but I don't think we saw what the actual adverse impact was. So based on all that, the committee is satisfied with the report from planning staff and with the evidence that we've heard tonight. So thank you for that. There's no other matters from an application standpoint that we need to cover. And thank you for your thoughts and for participating tonight. Like I said, to me, it would have been nice to had a little bit of a different set of information coming forward based on more collaboration. But in any event, I'll leave it there. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, good night. Okay, we're going to go to application number 10 for 33 Maple Grove Road. And I'm looking for the agent, Mr. West and Mr. Chown. Mr. West to Mr. Town.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chow. We're looking for a presentation. I take it Mr. West will be walking us through the application.
Yes, he will. Thank you.
All right. Then, oh, wait. Okay. I take it to you, Mr. West, is going to be doing the declaration here tonight?
Yep.
All right. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing, and that the sign was clearly visible and legible for the entirety of that time? Do you swear that those or affirm that those statements are true?
I swear.
All right, thank you. You can proceed with your presentation.
Perfect. We'll just wait till it's shared on screen. Excellent. Oh, so the applications you're hearing this evening are severance applications on the property municipally known as 33 Maple Grove. The subject property is shown in the figure in front of you. It's located in the Canada South Ward. It's a corner lot with an area of approximately 1,615 meters squared. There's approximately 51 meters of frontage along Maple Grove Road and approximately 33 meters of frontage along McCurdy Drive. If I ask you to switch to slide number 3, please. Thank you. The proposed severance is to facilitate the development of 2 low-rise apartment dwellings on the subject site, as well as easements for vehicular access and an easement for a stormwater outlet. The site plan is shown on the image in front of you. A zoning bylaw amendment was approved by City Council on February 10th, 2021 that rezoned the subject site to a residential 4th density zone, R4J2679. This rezoning permitted the 2 6-unit, 3-story low-rise apartment dwellings to be constructed on the subject site. The severance applications in front of you today conforms to the minimum lot area and the minimum lot width performance standards under the current zone. The purpose of the severance application is to simply split the subject site into 2 fully conforming lots and create the 2 easements. Ask you to switch to slide number 4, please. Thank you. The first severance application will create the lots identified as parts 1, 2, 3, and 5 on the draft reference plan, which is the image in front of you. This lot will have a total area of approximately 864.2 meters squared, depth of 50.04 meters, and a frontage of 17.53 meters on McCurdy and 51.3 meters on Maple Grove Road. An easement will be required to provide vehicular access over parts 2 in favor of parts 4. This easement is shown on the image in front of you. Another easement is required for stormwater management outlet over part 5 in favor of part 4. Once again, this easement is shown in the image in front of you. The second severance application will create the lot identified as part 4 on the draft reference plan. Part 4 will have an area of 751.5 meters squared. Now, before I speak to the rationale of the severances, I would like to note that we have reviewed the conditions the city has requested in their revised letter, which was dated February 26th, and we are satisfied with the conditions requested. For context, this revised letter added a condition to deal with the trees in the subject property as a condition of severance. So now I'll go forward with the rationale for the severances. Subsection 53(1) of the Planning Act requires that a severance be approved if council is satisfied that a plan of subdivision of the land is not necessary for the proper and orderly development of the municipality. Proposed severance and easements require the extension of a storm sewer on Maple Grove. This will be a condition of severance. Such a plan of subdivision not required. Subsection 53(12) of the Planning Act requires that consents are to have regard for the criteria outlined in subsection 5124 of the Planning Act. 5124A requires the application has regard for matters of provincial interest. The application in front of you today has regard for the following matters of provincial interest: supply, efficient use and conservation of energy and water, adequate provision, efficient use of communications, transportation, sewage, and water service and waste management systems, minimization of waste, the orderly development of safe and healthy communities, the appropriate location for growth and development, and the promotion of development that is designed to be sustainable, support public transit, and be oriented to pedestrians. Subsection 5124B requires the application is not premature. The severances and easements are located within a fully developed neighborhood where hard and soft services are present, as such is not premature. Subsection 5124C requires that the plans conform to the official plan. Subject site is designated general urban area in the City of Ottawa official plan. The general urban area encourages infill intensification. Section 2.2.2, the official plan, speaks to the promotion of intensification as a strategy to manage growth in a sustainable way. The severance and easements result in intensification of an existing lot in the general urban area and a cost-effective land use pattern for the provisions of services, transit infrastructure. The proposed severances conform to the City of Ottawa official plan. Subsection 5124D requires the land be suitable for the purposes to which it is to be subdivided. The severance of the subject site would conform to the minimum lot area and minimum lot width performance standards under the new zone. The severance application in front of you today would also have conformed to the previous zoning of the subject property. The proposed lots conform to the existing zone, and as such, they are suitable for the proposed use. Subsection 5124D.1 does not apply to this application. Subsection 5124E speaks to the linkages of location and highways. I would note that a corner site triangle is requested by the city as a condition. Subsection 5124F requires the dimensions and shapes of the proposed lots are appropriate. The severance of the subject site would conform to the minimum lot area and minimum lot width for 4 inches of the current and the previous zoning. As such, the dimensions and shape of the proposed lots are suitable for development. Subsection 5124G speaks to any restrictions on the lands, and as such, I discussed the easements in favor of Part 4 are required. Subsection 5124H speaks to the conservation of natural resources and areas, which are not applicable in this application. Subsection 5124I speaks to the adequacy of municipal services. The subject site is connected to existing utilities municipal service. I've previously mentioned the extension of the storm. Subsection 5124J speaks to adequacy of school sites. I would note there are several schools located in close proximity to the subject site, including Holy Trinity Catholic High School, Holy Redeemer School, Castle Frank Elementary School, Katimavik Elementary School, and Roger St. Denis Catholic Elementary School. Subsection 5124K speaks to the dedication of land for public purposes, and we note that cash in lieu of parkland is a condition of consent. Subsection 5124L speaks to the efficient use of energy. We note this infill intensification project within the general urban area effectively utilizes energy and land. And finally, subsection 5124M speaks to interrelationship between a site plan control application and consent application, which is not required in this case. So to summarize, the proposed severance and easements result in the creation of 2 lots that complement the pattern, scale, and desirable characteristics of the neighborhood. Proposed lots and easements have regard for matters of provincial interest. They are not premature. They conform to the official plan and zoning bylaw, are suitable for the land. They have adequate utilities and municipal services. They're located close to schools and utilize the service effectively. Proposed lots satisfy the criteria of section 5124 of the Planning Act. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. West. That was a very comprehensive review. Okay, so questions from the panel members. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. West? No questions. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. White? Okay. Go ahead, Mr. White.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just questioning stuff. It appears that normal site plan control conditions now are being delegated to the Committee of Adjustment on this application. I'm a little bit surprised that there is not a site plan control requirement on this development. Am I wrong, or is that the situation? I mean, it would appear that if there were not an application for consents here, that a lot of these things that are normally covered under site plan control would not be addressed in the building permit process. Am I wrong?
Mr. Rocker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as per the site plan control bylaw, because of the size of the building, the proposal would not be subject to site plan control.
Sorry, Mr. Walker, I don't think I caught that. Why is it not? Why wouldn't it be site plan control?
Oh, yes. So because of the, as per section 4.1 B7 of the site plan control bylaw, because of the size of the building, it would not, because of the size of the buildings, once the lot is severed, they would not trigger, with site plan control will not be triggered.
Just out of curiosity, does a proposal have to trigger the bylaw in order for the process to be undertaken? I know that sounds like a silly question, but my question really is, where we see circumstances where there's maybe the outlier that would benefit from a site plan control review, even if it isn't triggered under the zoning bylaw, is there anything that prevents the department from asking to look at it that way?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, so the general manager of the department does have the authority to trigger site plan control if it's deemed necessary. However, in this instance, because the staff had an opportunity to conduct a comprehensive review at the zoning bylaw amendment stage, we are satisfied that with these conditions in place, there would not be a need for additional review through the site plan control process. And as such, the general manager in this instance would not be recommending site plan control at this time.
All right, thank you. Mr. White, did they got any further questions? I kind of jumped in there on you.
That's fine, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else from the panel have any questions? All right, I must say, it's interesting, Mr. West, when you were going through the conditions and just confirm for me, I think I heard from you, and this has got to be a record. I don't think I've ever seen that many conditions as part of a proposed approval here in terms of, not proposed, but planning staff's report. I honestly, I think this is a record for you, but I just confirm for me that you're actually good with all of these. I think that's what I heard.
Yes, we're fine with all the conditions listed.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Okay. If there's no other questions, I'm going to go to the public portion then of the hearing of two speakers that are registered. I'm looking for Mr. David Wise. I think I've seen you. Oh, there you are.
I'm here. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. And then the other speaker will be, and I apologized in advance, but I think it's Mr. Awali. So that will be the next person who we will hear from. So Mr. Wise, go ahead and provide us with your comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, committee members. My wife Susan and I, we live in the house directly behind this said property, so we're very close. We've been there for 27 years. So as far as the severances are concerned, we were very keen on making sure that the severances included the storm water sewers, that condition was being brought forward, and so that was the one area that we wanted to make sure, because at this point City Council has already approved the rezoning and the 7 variances that were required to be able to build the property. So we wanted to make sure that the last little bits were covered. And so it kind of, and what I had a question, and I don't know whether this is the appropriate form, but it's with respect to variance. If there is additional variances required to build the property, would it have to come back to this committee or back to the city? If the 7 weren't enough, if things came up that were not, they required a variance at this stage?
Yes, in fact, they would. So when the committee approves plans, minor variances, they're tied to the plans. Unless there's a specific request to tie them more loosely to allow for a little bit of flexibility, we tend to actually pretty strictly apply it to the plan. So if somebody comes back and there's additional minor variances, chances are either it's been missed or they're playing with the design of the plans, which means that in any event, they're back, because any changes that they propose to make to any approval we've given means that it's no longer applicable, and we're back to looking at new plans.
Okay.
So they would, and then it goes back through the same public process at that point
Okay.
with the notice.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Madam Chair. And no, that's all that I had to say on the severance portion, which is the only part that you're addressing today.
All right, okay, thanks. I'm gonna then ask whether or not there's a Mr. Altawali. I have.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just got an email. The second speaker is no longer requesting to speak tonight.
Okay, all right, thank you. In that case, I'm going to open it up to anyone else in the audience who might want to speak either for or against this application. Just raise your hand and come forward. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone else at all. So I think committee then, we're already at decision-making time. So all those in favor of the application?
Madam Chair, can I ask just point of clarification?
Yes.
I'm not sure, I'm a little bit worried about Mr. Weiss being misunderstanding the process here, because this is not a variance before us. It's a zoning, it's already been zoned. So if there are any changes that are required to what's been zoned on a site-specific basis, it would have to come before us as a variance to that zoning. But I believe that that's prohibited for the first few years after a zoning bylaw is put in place. So in fact, if the zoning is such that it reflects the site plan, and there's several things that are different in the exception from the original zoning, that the applicant would indeed have to come back before us. But Mr. Chan could probably, or actually staff could correct me, but they cannot do so within a prescribed period of time.
Yes, I can confirm that we would have to go back through a rezoning process if we were to deviate, if we needed relief from the site-specific zoning bylaw.
Thanks so much. Mr. Walker, can you come forward, please? I just wanted to confirm essentially what Mr. Chan jumped in and provided in terms of information, but is there anything else from your perspective that maybe we should know that's relevant to this discussion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, Mr. Chown, he got it correct. If there is any changes, that would require minor variance because it was a site-specific zoning bylaw amendment. They would then need to seek another zoning bylaw amendment to permit those changes within the first 2 years.
Okay, and what's the date then, Mr. Walker? Do you know? What are we looking at? So
the zoning bylaw amendment was approved by council, if I'm not mistaken, on January 26th. That's when it came into full force and effect. And the appeal period ended on February 23rd. But the date that became in full force and effect would be the date that council approved it, which would be January 26th.
Okay, so the 2-year clock starts from there?
Yes, that's correct.
Just to be clear. Okay, all right, thanks. I just was curious about that. I wasn't sure what was the applicable date, so. Okay.
And I would thank Ms. Wills too, if I could jump in for a second there for clarifying.
Yes, I agree. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to a vote, right? Did I already do that at this point? Okay, all those in favor of the application? All right, for the record, the application is unanimously approved, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report. I don't think there's anything left to discuss. Mr. Chan, Mr. West, we're good?
We're good. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your time. I know it's getting late, so thanks for hanging in there. All right, we're going to go to application number 15 next, which is 104 Britannia Road. And I'm looking for, in this case, as the agent, Mr. Thompson.
Yes, good evening, Madam Chair.
Good evening. Okay, so you're the owners, or are you the prospective owners?
We're the owners of the property.
Okay, you're the owners of the property right now? Okay. I need to read something to you. So do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted on the property to which the application applies for the prescribed numbers of days before the hearing, and that the sign was clearly visible and legible for the entirety of that time? Do you swear or affirm that to be true?
I affirm that to be true.
All right, okay, thank you. So we are looking for a presentation from you. So if you have one, please proceed.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, so we're here to speak to our proposal, 104 Britannia. What we have proposed here is a single family dwelling with an in-law suite that we consider in keeping with the fabric of the neighborhood. We considered important planning factors such as the newly minted infill design guidelines and tree preservation and replanting efforts, as well as the consideration of immediate neighbors and their personal amenity spaces and the surrounding community feel and architecture. We've taken the city's objectives for thoughtful intensification seriously and reorganized an as-of-right footprint to balance many priorities. As we understand, it is an iterative process that weighs all site-specific characteristics, and often a corner lot in particular has much to consider. We are taking an undeveloped lot as it is today and developing in an interesting home. Are we able to change it to the second slide? Or?
Yep, so you just, yep,
Okay.
there you go.
Thank you. We have intentionally provided articulation on both street facades. This includes a stepping of the footprint along Britannia and architectural features such as masonry bump outs, front porches for community and street connection, and roof skirts to add interest to a two-story build.
And I guess just to flip back to the first, I apologize. It's just an illustration to sort of, I know planning is not as obvious necessarily as taking an as of right footprint and going from there, but this is a visual to sort of show in red, that square, an as of right footprint for the lot. If we were to take into consideration a 1.5 allowable meter setback from Rowett, a 1.2 meter interior side yard, a 6 meter rear yard, and 4.5 meters from Britannia. We just wanted to show that red square so that people could sort of understand how we've effectively just reorganized like an as of right evaluation in terms of, you know, a home's footprint to essentially accommodate some existing trees on site and honor the existing rear yards of the 1.5 story single family dwelling that you can see to the west and the residence to the south that's not shown on here. And so everything that's circled in green is essentially the setbacks that we're asking for in our minor variance application or application to the committee. And everything that's in red is sort of an as of right picture for this lot, so to speak. And so again, the second slide, its intention is just to show in rendering format. I know that sort of the black and white elevation drawings sometimes don't sort of properly depict the ways in which articulation has been added to this design, how you know, we've made deliberate efforts to step the Britannia elevation back from the northeast corner south along Britannia, and the roof lines vary as well. So we just basically wanted to be able to show in a more obvious way the articulation of the home and how it connects to the street on both elevations. And I think that's our presentation. But we realized that this is going to be open to question and conversation. And
All right, thank you very much. Okay, over to the members of the panel. Does anyone have any questions for our presenter, Ms. Willis?
I just was wondering if you could review again, you were telling us you put in the construction limits based on the existing zoning and what the floor area could be, or the total area. And then could you compare that again, give me the figure as to what would be permitted under the existing zoning, and then give me what the actual floor area is of the house? I missed that.
yes, absolutely. Sorry about that. It is on there in red, but you're right. So the as of right evaluation, you'd be looking at a home that is 165 square meters, or sorry, a footprint essentially. The proposed dwelling measures 159 square meters.
Thank you.
And a calculation, I believe, of approximately 42% of the lot.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? All right, in which case we will move on to the public portion of this hearing on this application. I have 3 speakers that are listed for this. I have Mr. Peter Duncan. Mr. Duncan, come on forward, you're on mute right now, so Mr. Duncan, you were there? Where did you go? All right, so just, you're on mute. Mr. Duncan, you're on mute. Unmute, you will need to unmute. There you go. Okay, I'm not sure why, but I'm not hearing Mr. Duncan, and he looks like he's unmuted. Mr. Duncan, we're not hearing you at all. Are you using your computer audio? All right, we're still not hearing a thing. Okay, how about, I can go to Mr. Riordan and then come back to you, Mr. Duncan. Riordan, I see Alana. I think it's Alana. That's the name I see, but the name on my list is John. So, but it, could you come forward, please, Mr. or Mrs. Riordan? That's interesting.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now, Mr. Riordan. Okay, so I'm going to go with you first, and then I'll come back to Mr. Duncan. So go ahead.
Okay. Maybe I'll just provide a quick overview of the neighborhood and just try to truncate things a bit. Actually, the house is a nice house. I think people, when they looked at it, when it moved even closer again to Britannia Road, people were concerned about how close it came. Typically in the village, the old part of the village, and that represents probably about 75 out of the 300 houses. The older houses were close to the street and they set off to one side and they created a side yard. And in almost no instance do they put the long side of the building against a corner lot. So this lot is a small lot, and they're trying to put a fairly large house onto it. We don't have any trouble at all with the road elevation and the closeness to the street, which I gather would be the front of the building. But on the Britannia Road side, Britannia Road is a very narrow road. The sidewalk is right adjacent to the street, and I think people feel it would be a little overbearing. Like, I actually prefer the last design where, like you moved it to accommodate the trees. In fact, the trees that are there probably aren't going to survive. Like the small house next door at 2748 Roy, they actually park on the trees. That's the driveway of the house. So that particular tree is probably not going to survive in the long run after the severance. So to see the house shifted to the west and creating a little bit more of a driveway would be, I think, highly desirable. And it would, it would actually highlight the street if you moved it back and let people look at the house instead of being plunked right on the edge of the road. Not quite on the edge of the road, but close. So I think that's my comment for now. I think Peter had a number of comments just about like the adjacent, like Britannia Road is a busy street. That sidewalk is not a great sidewalk anyways. It's, it's difficult to walk along. And just the building being so close to the street is the one thing that people would prefer to see it just shifted westward a bit.
All right,
I think that's probably my comments.
thank you. Any questions for Mr. Riordan? In the committee? Okay. Mr. Duncan. Mr. Duncan? Okay. I think Mr. Duncan is trying to call in. Mr. White?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering if we have a photograph of the existing streetscape at all. Is there any kind of streetscape plan that we could photograph that we could look at?
Is that something that was submitted with your materials? Mr. Thompson?
So we didn't submit it with the presentation this evening. It was included on our planning rationale that the city planner on file reviewed. We deliberately did this stepping in that at the garage face, we're closely relating to the house to the south of us. That I believe in the planner's report speaks to the fact that that house is probably at the 4.5 meter or slightly behind it. But as you graduate north of Rowett, a lot of those homes are actually, I don't know the exact measurement, so I don't want to say, but a lot of those homes are within.
They're within a couple of meters,
yeah,
of the sidewalk. And what we're proposing is at the nearest is 3.1 from the property line. And then plus or minus, there's another 1.5 meters to the sidewalk.
Of city right of way.
Of city right
All right, thank you. Okay, I'm going to see whether Mr. Duncan, because your phone is on mute. It's a *6.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, we can hear you now. Perfect.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Duncan. Go ahead.
Okay. So my name is Peter Duncan, and you heard from John Riordan. John and I are both directors of the Britannia Village Community Association. Now, traditionally, the Community Association has never taken a position or rarely takes a position on minor variances. But in this case, the number of minor variances cumulatively add up to more than we think should be permitted. And we had a vote amongst the association, and it was unanimous. And the association voted that we would oppose the application. Let me give you a couple of reasons. We sent a slide through, I think. I don't know if you want to put it up.
Ms. Minette, do we have that?
Yes. No, that's not the slide we sent. No. But anyway, I'll get back to it. Okay. So the house is shifted very close to Britannia Road. Okay. First of all, the variances being asked for are not exactly minor. On the side of Britannia Road to the neighboring house where the garage is, they're asking for a reduction of 6 meters to 1.2 meters. That is like a 10-foot variance. But if you add that to the variance, plus the variance on Rowett, plus the variance on Britannia, three sides of the house are exceeding the size permitted. So what we're getting now is take parking, for example. There's a one-car garage. You can fit a car in there, but the resulting driveway from the garage door to the lot line is only 13 feet long. So if there's one car in the driveway, and if the second car parks on the one car in the garage and one car parks in the driveway, it will protrude 3 feet over the lot line right up to the sidewalk. And the sidewalks on Britannia Road are quite small. They are narrower than usual, and they're the undulating types that go along because they're built right next to the road. And any other person who lives in a house will be parking on the road. And already there's a parking problem on Rowett because one of the cars on Rowett is using the vacant lot at 104 Britannia to park. Frontage on Britannia. They mentioned, yeah, some houses are close. Britannia has a lot of little houses that have variances. That's why we typically don't oppose variances. My house, for example, is 18 feet. It's quite close to the road. This house is going to be 10 feet. But every other house on Britannia, even though some are close to the road, it's only a narrow portion of the house. Typically long-wise away from the road so that you always have a very large side space. In this house, the whole house is covering the property because of the side variances, and the whole house is only 10 feet from the edge of the property line. It's going to be a massive facade all the way down Britannia Road. Second one is the corner. The corner of the property, because it's too close to Britannia Road, will obstruct the view of anybody coming out of Rowett. So you come out of Rowett, you hit a stop sign. Britannia Road is a busy road. It's a bus route. It also services the water purification plant and all the emergency vehicles for people getting stuck in the Deschênes Rapids come down there. And there's no summer. You might have it coming down every weekend. Or every day or every second day. And you just, with that obstruction on the corner, it's going to be dangerous. I don't know what else to say. The house is not in character with the whole facade along the road. It's going to be dangerous. There's going to be a big parking issue. We would like to see the house pushed back from Britannia by at least 10 feet to at least fit the car into the lot line and not be as obtrusive. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Duncan. Are there questions from the panel members to Mr. Duncan? No, okay, I'm not seeing any questions from the panel. Okay, I have another speaker, Ms. Carolyn Perry.
No.
Perry? No? Okay. All right. No, and I'm not seeing this. Okay. Anyone else in the audience would like to speak either for or against on this application? Okay. All right. Couple of questions then I have as follow-up. Is this Mr. Walker? No, Mr. Hodgins. Mr. Hodgins, a couple of questions. So on the parking, what's the parking requirement for this zone? So I think we heard there's one in the garage, but it sounds like that's it.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, the parking requirement for this property is one parking space. So that would be contained within the existing garage or the garage proposed.
Okay, all right. So no issue then with the driveway being a little short. In terms of, we've been hearing a little bit about the trees. I thought the tree protection bylaw wasn't applicable given when this application was originally submitted, but then I thought I saw that, under considerations or additional comments, that at the time of building permit application, an opportunity to plant more of the required compensation trees on site, particularly on the road frontage, should be considered in the tree information report. Can you just tell me if that's applicable here, or?
Through you, Madam Chair, I may defer to Ms. Young if she's still on the call. I'm aware one of our concerns with the previous circulation was we wanted to look further into the tree protection, and it was examined through the recirculation revisions to the site plan. Ms. Young, if she's on the call, maybe I'll defer to her on that question.
Yes, I see Ms. Young. Thank you for coming forward. Your thoughts on this?
Yep, through you, Madam Chair. The tree protection bylaw, even if it didn't apply at the time of the original application for this one, the trees on site are of such a size that they were covered by the urban tree conservation bylaw. So we worked with the applicant to try to retain one of the trees on site, which was the white pine that a few people have referred to. And that is why the building got pushed toward Britannia Road slightly. The arborist does claim that that tree can survive with the setback that is now there. So did you have other questions related to the trees?
No, I guess it sounds like overall some of the changes that were made to the site actually are in favor of tree preservation. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah.
Thank you. No, I wanted to clarify that and ensure that we understood that issue better, and the parking. Anybody else wants to ask, or can we go to a vote? All right, members, we're going to go to a vote then on this minor variance application. I'd like to see all those in favor. All right, so for the record, the application is approved unanimously. And I think, I think you've provided your evidence well. And so I think the committee understands the need for, even though there are a number of variances here.
Could we speak just briefly to a couple of concerns raised by the community? With respect to, sorry, I should wait for permission.
Well, I mean, you can. I mean, the application is approved right now. They are your neighbors. Yeah. So I would suggest that you have a discussion with them, because obviously it went to the decision's gone in your favor and not in theirs. So I would suggest that you reach out to them and have a conversation.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, good luck. Good luck with your project. I think that brings us to the end of this application for this evening, leaving only one application left, which is application number 12 for 2911 Prince of Wales. And I think at this point, it's Mr. White and I will take our leave. Hand the reins over to Mr. Hindle to shepherd this one through to its conclusion. So thanks everyone for your support tonight, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Great, thank you, and have a good night.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Got off early. Got to declare more often. It's a pretty good gig. All right, so yes, 2911 Prince of Wales. Is it Miss Blakely that will be speaking this evening towards the application? All right, feel free to unmute yourself. Miss Blakely, is it you that will be swearing to the oath for the signposting, or is that to someone else?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to confirm we did submit the signed affidavit that was actually completed by the owner. That was just earlier today. So if for any reason it's not on file, I believe we can do the oath, but it would be the owner that would be completing that.
Great. Let's just confirm with committee staff. Do we have confirmation of that we've received that?
Mr. Chair, we did receive the staff deck form. However, it was not commissioned by Commissioner Bose, so we will need the verbal information.
Sorry, can you say that again? We couldn't quite hear you.
Sorry, we did receive the signed form. However, it was not so we will need the verbal.
Okay, so I think what I heard is that you did receive a form, but either it didn't meet the form or the full requirements. So we will need to swear it this evening, which is fine. That's not a problem. So is that to you, Mr. Mignon?
It's to Jerry Lalone, who should be participating with us. Oh, yeah.
There's Jerry. Okay. So feel free just to unmute yourself and turn on your camera if you can.
There we go.
Perfect. There it is. So I'll read this out to you. You've been watching this evening. You know the drill.
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing, as instructed, and was clearly visible and legible during this time?
I affirm that.
Great. Perfect.
I just
Now we're on the
record. If you don't mind, when I submitted the affidavit, I think last time I did it, the commissioner was actually at the Committee of Adjustments so that wasn't available this time. So I submitted it not knowing how you would handle the
Right. Yes, and that is an ongoing issue with the virtual hearings, that exactly, access to a commissioner is a little bit more difficult. But this is fine. We have this backstop, so we're all good. So with that, I think we have those formalities out of the way. Ms. Blakely, it's off to you for a presentation.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'll try to keep this brief. So the purpose of the applications that are before you this evening are to sever 4 vacant lots for the purpose of developing single detached dwellings. So these applications were before committee last year, where they were adjourned to allow further investigation into the technical and financial feasibility to extend municipal services to the proposed lots. So the original applications, the lots were designed on the basis of private well and septic. And this resulted in a proposed reduced setback from a water course that travels through the property. So after further investigation, there's agreement that municipal sanitary sewer can be extended to service each of the proposed lots. So this allows for the development to be shifted towards Prince of Wales and to respect the 30-meter setback requirement. So there's no longer a need for a minor variance. And it was also agreed that the extending water wasn't deemed to be feasible given it was quite some distance away. So as such, the applications before you have been amended to reflect the proposed partial servicing. We would note there's been no significant changes to the proposed lot configuration since we initially filed the applications. And so I just included some slides to provide some context for the property. So this site is on the east side of Prince of Wales. It extends approximately 140 meters to the Rideau River. It's within a pocket of existing residential development north of the built-up Barhaven area. It's one of the largest remaining vacant properties in this area. It was formerly developed with a 2-story hotel that included some other accessory cabins throughout the property. The use of this property ceased a number of years ago, and all structures have since been removed, so it now sits vacant. There's a few slides if we're to continue showing a different angle. There's a few street view photos that just show the, I guess, the vacant condition of the site as it exists today, and a few other, I think we skipped some slides. There's anyways, there's a few other showing some of the surrounding development, which is predominantly older singles as well as some newer contemporary infill. If there's perhaps if we go another slide, I'm not sure if something happened with the order. No. There was to be a slide that just showed servicing within this area, as that was kind of the point of discussion at the previous hearing. So that the policies of the South Nepean Urban Area Secondary Plan, they designate this and other adjacent properties as within the private service residential area. So this recognizes that development in this area historically proceeded on the basis of private well and septic. And some properties have connected as municipal services become available. So there's currently a sanitary, perfect. There's currently a sanitary sewer that was in recent years extended along Rideau Glen. Perfect, if we're good on this slide. So that provided some opportunity to extend sanitary along Rideau Glen and across the Prince of Wales frontage to the subject site. So there's been servicing plans prepared and circulated to the city and other agencies for review that demonstrate the proposed design of the sanitary extension. So at this point, we're before the committee for the proposed creation of 4 vacant lots ranging from approximately 0.4 hectares to 0.53 hectares. So as shown conceptually on this drawing, each lot is designed fully in compliance with the current R1E zone, so that all development can be accommodated outside of the 30-meter setback from the watercourse, which is shown as the pink line on this drawing. So that would include the dwellings, garage, the well, accessory buildings and structures, and any associated with some rear yard amenity. So the proposed lots are well in excess of the minimum requirement of the zone, but the development would be concentrated towards Prince of Wales Drive, such that it more or less aligns with the neighboring dwellings. That's roughly within 50 meters of the street, whereas the large majority of the land extending to the river will remain undeveloped, as it's constrained by floodplain, watercourse setback, and aircraft noise considerations. Additionally, there is no development contemplated for the proposed retained lands, which front on Prince of Wales as well as Rideau Glen, although they could readily accommodate a single detached in accordance with the current zoning. So I've included some additional slides that demonstrate the proposed lots as well as the servicing design, just if there's any questions that might relate to those specifics. But I could conclude at this point just that the severances as proposed, they align with the criteria in the Planning Act under section 5124 related to lot creation, including having regard for matters of provincial interest. The lots further conform to the official plan, the secondary plan, and comply with zoning. And they represent orderly development that is consistent with the established low density residential character of this area. The severances have also been are also supported by a number of technical studies that address matters such as servicing, heritage, slope stability, and noise considerations. So I think I will leave it there, and we'd be happy to respond to any questions you might have.
Perfect. No, thank you. That was very helpful. We'll jump right in. We'll go to Ms. Willis.
I'm just wondering if we can flip back to the plan, what was called the concept plan, and it had the pink line with the 30-meter setback, and I couldn't read some of the information on that plan. So okay. Something weird. Okay. Oh, it's too big. It's huge. Oh. Okay, so the pink line is the 30-meter from watercourse line. What's the green line?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the pink line depicts the 30 meters from the watercourse, not to be confused with the Rideau River.
Mm-hmm.
The green line is top of bank from that watercourse.
Okay.
So it's actually just I guess a minor stream. Has very little water in it typically.
So there's no opportunity to develop anywhere beyond the pink line based on the requirements of the I guess it's the Conservation Authority and the official plan. Am I correct that it has to be on the street side of that pink line?
That's correct. If the pink line shows the 30 meters in one direction, and of course the extending it 30 meters in the other direction, as well as 30-meter setback from the Rideau River, essentially prevents any development from occurring on those lands that are.
And then the dark blue or black dotted line shows the 35 contour line of airport noise, which creates a problem for any development to be to occur within that what is it, the noise contour of 35. So all of the development that's proposed here for the single family homes is outside the 35 limit of the airport noise cones. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, it's well in excess of the noise contour, the 35 noise contour line.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that's very helpful. I think I really appreciated this drawing as well. I think it came up in my review and some of our earlier questions about especially meeting the official plan intention related to development within those noise contours. I think given that I have a little bit of confidence, at least even for myself, that development can't happen within that 35 noise contour, which I think was really one of the last outstanding concerns that I had, given the adjournment and the number of technical studies that have since been done to give that slope stability and the servicing and to address those kind of concerns. Okay, the only other thing I had on my note, I think we need to make a bit of a change to the notice as to the area of some of the properties. So I can read it out. It looks like it just changes to parts 4 and 5. The notice looks like said 4,270 square meters. I believe that should be corrected to 4,019 square meters. And then overall, it looks like the original overall property lot size was listed at 7,090, but should instead be listed at 7,341. Is that correct?
Yes, I think that reflects there was a very slight change in the proposed property line, that it was shifted as a result of no longer requiring that space for a septic. So it just created more kind of consistent lot lines and resulted in the area change.
Right. Okay. And then I think you mentioned it, that there's not currently any development planned on that last kind of lumpy lot. Is that primarily due to restrictions due to servicing or related to the watercourse setback?
So the retained parcel is designed that it could accommodate a single detached that would be outside of the 30-meter watercourse. That just wasn't pursued, I guess, at this time. And of course, with the proposed servicing, there might be opportunity to connect to that. I guess that's all kind of future plans at this point.
Right. But ultimately, that one's probably the hardest to develop. So if you get the other ones, then there's some incentive to go ahead and finish. Okay. I think that's the end of the concerns or questions that I had. Anyone else on the committee? Further questions, Ms. Willis?
Actually, I'm just curious, and this is probably a question for staff. There's no comments that were received from the airport authority, even though the parts of these lots are within the noise cones. And I'm just wondering, I'm sure who the planner is on this one.
Mr.
Whether
Walker?
or not is it unusual for them not to have commented, or is it because they had no concerns? Do you have any insight as to why there's no comments from the airport authority?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. So I know that the airport authority had provided comments on the application when it was initially submitted in 2019. Unfortunately, I don't know why they hadn't provided any comments this round. I guess would direct that question to committee staff, but I haven't been in contact with the planner at the airport for their comments.
I think that's fair. Yeah. We've noticed definitely in other applications that the airport authority is sometimes a bit militant on some of the other applications in more established areas that are less affected by the airport. So it was a little bit surprising to see nothing come out of them for this one. Okay, well, with that, I think I'll open it up then to the public portion. So if there's anyone here remaining that would like to speak either for or against this application, I'd invite you to come forward now and offer your comments. It looks like we have 0 remaining participants or attendees that are not currently in the room. So that's a good sign at the very least. So seeing nothing and pending any other questions or comments from the rest of the committee, I think it's time to go to a vote. So all in favor of the proposed severances in this case, raise your hand. All right. So it looks like we're unanimous in granting the application subject to the conditions that obviously were provided in the staff report. Any concerns on those? They're fairly extensive, I know.
Yeah, no, we reviewed conditions and no concerns.
Perfect. All right. Well, with that in mind, I guess that's all. So I guess I'll look then to my other 2 leading ladies for a motion to adjourn. Ms. Willis, and seconded by Ms. Markovich. Great. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for holding out past 10 o'clock.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Cheers. Goodbye, everyone.